Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon, Senate Finance. We're going to begin our hearings for today, which is Friday, February 24th, 2023. We will not be reading the order that will hear the bills because we're going to take them as the sponsors arrive. We have 23 bills, a combination of statewide and local bills. We're going to start with Senator Carrozza, Senate Bill 135, Worcester County licenses. Good afternoon, Senator. If you have a panelist, you can bring them up with you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor Meehan from Ocean City has come up, as well as Bruce Brariano. So for the record, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza, proud to represent Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. Thank you, Chair Griffith, for the courtesy with the mayor coming up from Ocean City, to the vice chair and all the members of this distinguished Senate Finance Committee for allowing me to present Senate Bill 135, which is Worcester County Alcoholic Beverages, Ocean City's Promoters License. This is a local bill that establishes an Ocean City Promoters License in Worcester County and authorizes the Worcester County Board of License Commissioners to issue the license for a for-profit organization to sell beer, wine, and liquor at entertainment events held within the town limits of Ocean City. As amended, the license must be approved by the Ocean City Police Department. Right now, the only way to sell alcohol at a special event in Ocean City is to have a local nonprofit purchase and serve the alcohol. However, as the tourism industry grows and events draw larger crowds, this is no longer practical. This bill would ensure that alcohol is served in a safe, efficient, and professional manner through businesses that are accustomed to serving in major event settings. I will let the Mayor Meehan talk a little bit more about the connection to tourism. But I did want to point out that being able to issue a promoter's license, just as Frederick County, Allegheny County, and Baltimore City are authorized to do, it would allow Ocean City to do the same on a very limited basis. I truly appreciate your kind consideration, and I do respectfully ask for a swift and favorable report on SB 135. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Mayor Rick Meehan, the mayor of Ocean City, Maryland, thank you very much for hearing this today. I think the senator has very accurately described the purpose and the intent of this bill. As we've seen tourism continue to grow in Ocean City, and we continue to grow tourism, we're bringing larger events to town, and the previous way this was handled through nonprofits just doesn't work anymore. We want to allow the promoters to get their own licenses. They would then be responsible. They are all trained. They're accustomed to doing these type of large events. Everybody's TAM trained. We think it'll be a safer event that way. We think it'll be easier for us to facilitate this type of event. This is not something that's new. There are 3 other jurisdictions that already have promoters license. Allegheny, Frederick, and Baltimore City already have promoters licenses. So this would basically mirror that. It does have to be approved by the Ocean City Police Department, but the event itself has to be approved by the mayor and city council before it even gets to that level. The Board of License Commissioners of Worcester County then must also approve, and they have the ability to make changes or put additional requirements on any promoter that's holding an event in Ocean City. We think this is the safest way to accommodate these type of events and to help us continue to grow tourism in Ocean City. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, members of the Senate Finance Committee, for the record, Bruce Brariano, lobbyist for the mayor and city council of Ocean City. This is a very important and significant bill. The main reason I'm up here is I just wanted to participate in the historical first of the Senate Finance Committee hearing alcoholic beverage bills. Some of you know I've been around a long time, and this is a first. Congratulations. I know you will handle it well and do it in a very bubbly fashion. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the sponsor or the panel? Madam Senator, will there be a delegation letter on this bill?
Well, I'm the.
You are the
I am the
delegation.
senator that represents Worcester County.
Apparently, I'm told we
Okay.
still need a letter from you.
You'll have it today.
Okay, thank you very much. With no further questions, that concludes the
Thank you,
hearing
Madam
on
Chair.
Senate Bill
Madam Chair.
135.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. All right, colleagues, we'll turn to Senate Bill 607, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages 46th District Alcoholic Beverage District Revisions. We have the Senate President and Senator from District 46. Good afternoon, Mr. President. If you have a panel, you can feel free to bring them forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It is a pleasure to be here with you today on Alcohol Bill Day. It is quite fitting that I follow the senator from the 38th district because I think we're very close on who has the most number of liquor licenses in the district. So it is a very close between the 46th and the 38th. We're in a nearly equal. So you're starting the day off in the heart of entertainment zone, I guess. I appreciate the committee's indulgence. This is every year, the 46th district has a very complicated regulations around alcohol establishments because it is a balance between neighborhoods and commercial centers and entertainment centers. And so given the proximity and the close proximity of our entertainment areas and neighborhoods, we have a lot of complicated rules about where can and cannot have liquor license establishments open up. And there are a lot of restrictions upon that. So every year we have a bill that deals with a number of different specific areas and specific licenses to try and clean up either something that's happened over the year or allow something to occur because there's been a new development or economic development opportunity. So the bill before you has 5 specific revisions. The first is one that allows the Creative Alliance, which is an amazing institution. If you've not had a chance to come by on Eastern Avenue, they've now opened up a new education center with the help of the General Assembly and bond bills from prior years across the street. And so this would allow them to apply their liquor license across the street to that new education creativity centers facility. The second allows, if any folks have ever been to the Patterson Duck Pin Bowling, it is a building that's it is a historic building, but not officially. A developer purchased it, and there's an effort to try and save the Duck Pin Bowling Alley. And so in negotiations with the council person and with the developer, there's an effort to, if a Duck Pin Bowling Alley does remain in the new development, they would be granted an on-premise liquor license that they would be allowed to use and could never be transferred from that site. So it's an effort to try and make it economically viable to save the Duck Pin Bowling Alley. Third is a license that right now is beer and wine. This would give an allowance for a restaurant to add liquor under certain specific criteria, including that it is a restaurant with 51% receipts from food, 75 seats or fewer, that pays a $15,000 transfer fee, engages in an agreement with the neighborhood association, and finally, once it converts, it must stay at that location. This is the hard part about the liquor licenses, the value that they create. And so this would say that it could not be transferred and sold to another location. Fourth, we have a new license that would be permitted in an area that has otherwise been restricted. That's the Perkins Somerset Old Town Transformation Zone. This is a major economic development project, and this would allow a new restaurant to open up there. And finally, fifth, during the pandemic, one of the licenses in the district expired for unforeseen circumstances, and this allows them to extend for a year to be able to sell that license from the family that were in which it extinguished. I have Nick Blendy here from the Baltimore City Liquor Board in case there are any questions. But other than that, appreciate the committee's consideration and would urge a favorable report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Nick Blendy, Deputy Executive Secretary for the Liquor Board in Baltimore City. I have nothing to add. I'm just here to answer questions if the Senate President needs to assist on some technicality.
Thank you. So are we. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Senator Vital.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm looking at I guess it's the very last change where you say changes a seating capacity of fewer than 200 individuals, only if the establishment is within Ward 3, Precinct 3. Doesn't say on the second Tuesday of the month or anything. It just, so I just was wondering what that means.
Yep. So right, we're in the deep weeds of liquor licensing in Baltimore. So we have a number of restrictions based on ward and precinct. A lot of them are where there is close proximity between bar districts and neighborhoods. 3-3 is one of those, which used to be the Perkins Public Housing Project, which is now being vacated and redeveloped. This would allow for a license to be transferred in an otherwise precluded area. So it used to be residential there. That is now being demolished, and there is a new, larger mixed use plan moving forward. And this would allow for a beer hall a beer garden that has, but not a massive expansion, but a 200 seats or fewer. So it was in consultation with the neighborhood associations, with all of the various stakeholders, and there's a lot of conversations about liquor licenses.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Oh, yes,
Thank
this is
you.
where I get like, I feel like I have a doctorate in.
Okay, any further questions for the sponsor or the panel? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Enjoy your
Have a
afternoon.
very
Thank you.
wonderful day. Thank you.
All right, colleagues, we're going to turn to Senate Bill 795. Wacomico County Alcoholic Beverages Cigar Lounge License, and Senator Carros is back.
Thank you, Chair Griffith. And if I could have my witnesses join me. So I again want to thank the chair and all the members of the Senate Finance Committee. For the record, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza representing Wycomico, Worcester, and Somerset counties. I am here to ask for your support for Senate Bill 795, Wycomico County Alcoholic Beverages Cigar Lounge Licenses. And I will note that this would be a bill that I'm presenting as amended. This is a local alcohol bill, not a smoking bill, and it would establish a Class B-CL beer, wine, and liquor license in Wycomico County and authorize the Wycomico County Board of License Commissioners to issue the license for use in a cigar lounge and only to customers who are seated on the premises of the cigar lounge. As amended, this bill also would restrict Wycomico County cigar lounges from selling food that is prepared on site. As you know, a cigar lounge is a specialty business designed to provide individuals with a place where they can smoke cigars, to relax, network, and visit with other individuals who appreciate this traditional niche product. Cigar smokers tend to smoke less than your average cigarette smoker, viewing it as a leisurely activity, perfectly suitable for a lounge atmosphere. As you may know, cigar lounges are already exempt from the indoor smoking restriction, as cigar lounges are retail business. This bill would simply allow cigar lounges, would allow a cigar lounge in Wycomico County to have the same benefit as other jurisdictions have. And those would be, an example of that would be in Anne Arundel County, which has roughly 6 times the population of Wycomico County, which only supports 2 cigar bars. This is a local bill. And I want to point out also in your packet would be the testimony from the Premier Cigar Retailers Association of Maryland. And they point out that they are supporting the bill and believe that adult consumers should be reasonably able to consume the products that they want in the manner that they would like. This includes being able to consume premium cigars and alcohol in the same venue. Several other jurisdictions already provide the opportunity to sell premium cigars and alcoholic beverage in the same venue. And there should be parity between the counties. Again, this is a local bill. And I ask for your favorable consideration to move on Senate Bill 795. And if I could, if my other witnesses could present as well before there are questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hi, my name is Bunky Luffman. I'm the Director of Administration for Wycomico County. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Senate Finance Committee. It's an honor to be here with you today to testify on the Wycomico County Cigar Lounge License Bill. This local courtesy bill seeks to allow Wycomico County to issue a cigar lounge license to serve alcohol. Other jurisdictions already allow this. This bill is in no way breaking new ground. We're not asking for any venues other than cigar lounges to have this right. Smoking already occurs in the cigar lounge, so we're not attempting to increase any kind of smoking. We're just allowing people who have already chosen to smoke in a cigar lounge to purchase alcohol. I respect the health of professionals who are opposing the bill, but believe adults who have made a decision to smoke cigars should be offered the opportunity to have an accompanying adult beverage if they choose. This local courtesy bill is being heard today on Alcohol Day because it's an alcohol bill, not a tobacco bill, and it's also not a statewide bill. The bill is supported by our delegation, our county council, and our county executives. There are no objections to this bill during our county council's public meeting discussing it and was unanimously approved. Given this local support, I respectfully ask for your vote for a favorable report on the local courtesy bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Paul Ellington with State and Local Advisors. I represent the County Executive, Wycomico County. And I know you have a lot of bills today, so I'm going to keep my remarks short. Senator Carrozza has worked with stakeholders and has offered an amendment to this bill in what I think is a thoughtful and responsible way. And the lounge would need to be members-only establishment and not be allowed to prepare any food on site. And I might also add here that neighboring bars and restaurants in Salisbury in the town support this bill as well because they believe more activity downtown is a good thing. The state has invested a lot of money in Salisbury in particular over the years through tax credits and through the Department of Housing and Community Development. And but Wycomico County remains a disparity grant county. But we are focused on economic development and job growth. And we estimate that this bill, if passed, would add approximately 10 jobs. But it's important to note here that 80% of the 2,000 businesses in Wycomico County employ less than 20 people. So small businesses are the backbone of our local economy, and having a diversity of businesses positions our county economically to better weather the economic downturns. These are employees who would be choosing to work in a cigar lounge. This bill would simply allow them to also serve alcohol. Serving alcohol and cigars in the same venue is already allowed, as was previously noted in other counties. So I would respectfully ask for a favorable vote for this courtesy bill to give Wycomico County parity on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. No question. Okay, I don't see any. Senator. Ooh, okay, there were none and now there's Senator Vital, Senator Hershey, Senator DeLamb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Carrozza, I do not see an amendment in our testimony package.
Okay,
Do you see it?
my understanding was uploaded with my testimony, but
I see
I
oral
have a
testimony.
copy of it.
We'll find it. I just see
Okay.
your oral testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to the amendment, it says that you're going to, after lounge, insert that as a members only establishment. Can you clarify that?
That was obviously to basically kind of limit participation, but Mr. Loftman, if you wanted to expound on that.
Yeah, so this would take it from a public lounge to one where you would have to, join so you would be actively going through an application process, likely paying a fee. So it wouldn't be, it wouldn't have public access.
That's what I thought. And again, most of us are new to the alcohol beverage laws here, but does that type of establishment allow you to bring your own or store your own? I see in some types of clubs like that, you might have like a wine cabinet or something like that where you could have a wine. We've talked about corkage fees at a number of different places. Do you know that at a members lounge or members only establishment, if you can bring your own? Your bill wants to sell it, but I just wasn't sure if you're allowed to bring it already.
If I may,
Yes,
in the facilities that currently have that, they do not permit outside alcohol.
They do not. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lamb.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses here. I'm just looking through the testimony packet, and there have been a lot of concerns brought up with this bill. I serve I'm the Senate's representative of the State Cancer Council, and they actually have submitted, and I did not participate in their legislative discussion, but it looks like they had submitted a letter of concern in opposition to this. And I know that you had cited as well as the Maryland Department of Health, to be clear, they also submitted letter of opposition. You cited the fact that this is not a smoking bill. This is an alcohol bill, I guess. But I think a lot of the concerns here stem from the fact that this is precedent setting in some way. This is creating an exemption to the Clean Indoor Air Act that Maryland passed back in 2009 and allows a facility to bring in alcohol in a way that might cause patrons to linger in that location longer. Because, you know, the exemption to the Clean Indoor Air Act now for cigars is really for folks to be able to try cigars before they're purchasing them, you know, use them in very limited fashion, then, you know, purchase their cigars and then exit the facility. By having alcohol there, how does this not cause patrons to linger there in that facility longer?
If I may, in the testimony, you'll see that there are on the left side a number of tobacco facilities. I dare say that the vast majority of those have a cigar lounge on premises. There are many of them in the state, and the purpose there, given the restrictive rules on smoking, is that many patrons will purchase their cigars and enjoy their cigars with fellow cigar smokers on premises.
But this brings in alcohol to the premises or permits alcohol to be brought onto the premises as well in a way that I don't think the initial exemption that was created for the state's Clean Indoor Air Act of 2009 had intended. So I think it is precedent setting in some ways to be able to allow this loophole to be created through this legislation. And I think I have concerns about how this could open up other venues across the state. And I understand this is a local bill, but I think when we have local bills and we've sat on the former EHE committee, when we look at alcohol bills that are precedent setting in nature, we do try to take into account how this could potentially open the door up for other facilities across the state as well.
If I could respond, I just think that your interpretation of opening up the Clean Indoor Act, there's another way to look at this. Number one, that exemption already exists, and kind of presuming that, you know, you already have this exemption and you have cigar smokers who are already making the decision as adults to come together and, you know, visit together, you know, enjoying these cigars. So I guess to kind of assume a timeline on that, you know, that's already approved. It's already been opened up. So I guess I don't really accept that. You know, the cigar smokers themselves, they're already making a decision on coming together to smoke, and whether that's for, you know, one cigar or to spend several hours there, that's already approved.
Well, I would point to the Department of Health's written testimony here that says explicitly this bill creates a loophole that undermines the Clean Indoor Air Act mandate to keep smoking out of bars and restaurants. And I understand your argument there. I'm not entirely convinced, but I'll yield back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going Senator Mounts and then Senator Kramer.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask quickly, where does this already exist? So it's already in place in other locations where they already do this.
Anne
And
Arundel, sorry.
Okay, and then why is this important for this particular business?
Anne Arundel and Charles counties already allow this.
Why is it important?
And why?
I would go to your economic development.
Yeah, why is it important for this business?
Well, I would refer to my earlier remarks about economic activity in Salisbury. As I said, the state's invested a lot of money. We had the Horizon tax credit where we helped complete some projects, and we're looking to grow the city. But right now in the evenings, it's a ghost town. We have one drinking establishment, one bar and one restaurant, and we're looking to increase activity downtown, and it also creates jobs.
and Wacomico has a dispensary system also.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
And that funds. What does that fund?
Well, we are one of two counties that still have the liquor dispensary system, Wycomico and Montgomery, and the county gets, I believe it was about $900,000 last year from that system.
Thank you, Senator Kramer.
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. Gentlemen, I share similar concerns to those of the good Senator Lamb about the issues raised by the Department of Health, but I also note that part of the purpose of the Clean Indoor Air Act was to protect employees from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke. And I note that you indicate this will be creating 10 new jobs. And so that means there's 10 employees that now are going to be exposed to secondhand smoke. And one of the major pieces of the act was to ensure that we are taking, as a government, making a policy decision to take employees out of that exposure. So I could see this as sort of being a significant step backwards in the policy decision that this Maryland General Assembly made with the passage of the Clean Indoor Air Act. So I think I share a concern similar to those of Senator Lamb, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Beidle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you keep saying Anne Arundel County, but I think it's in the city of Annapolis that we have the cigar bar. No?
No, ma'am.
Where else is it?
It's right there, Route 3 North. Is that Titus? What is that called? Titan. It's right there by used to be the Green Turtle, Smashing Grapes or whatever it is now on the northbound side.
So your concern is to have, is this in Salisbury or all over the county?
Well, I think the Senator Carrozza's remarks got to that. Anne Arundel is about 6 times as big as Wycomico as population. So we don't foresee there being any more than one. We just don't think the market would bear it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, with regard to employees, would they know that they were coming to work at a cigar store?
Yeah, this bill inherently is a cigar lounge
Yeah.
that then also adds alcohol.
Yeah, so they won't have, they would be making a decision to do that. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any additional questions from the committee. I just have one. I just wanted to follow up on a question Senator Hershey asked earlier in reference to the amendment. I'm just curious as to the definition of the members only club and whether or not the other cigar lounges that have this provision are members only.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. The one in Anne Arundel County, you pay a fee and join the club.
So the only sort of criteria for membership would be whether or not you're willing to pay the fee.
I can't speak to their policies.
I'm asking about your plans based on the amendment.
Again, I would leave that to the business owner, but our interpretation would be that they would pay a fee and submit an application, whether it would be reviewed, as Mr. Luffman said, that's a possibility as well, but we would leave that to the business owner.
Madam Chair, if I could also respond,
Sure.
really, the members only establishment addition was meant to limit, to address some of the concerns. And that was the same reason when we also had concerns from the Maryland Restaurant Association. That's why we also put in that the license holder cannot sell food prepared on site. And just going back to the earlier question, and based on what Anne Arundel County has done with a bigger population, we are talking about one local cigar lounge that would be able to sell alcohol.
I understand that. My question honestly was just because this area is new to me and I'm not familiar with the membership only provision. So just wanted to check on that. All right, Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To follow up on your question, I don't know what's going to happen with this bill, if it's going to advance, whatever. The membership only clause do give me a little bit of pause. And so I would say if it was to advance, that we have some guardrails around protecting against discrimination based on race. and
Absolutely.
Other things as well
Absolutely.
into the statute of this legislation.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hershey.
Madam Chair, just to comment, I think the members only is set up just to make that it's an affirmative known that you are joining a smoking club of that type. So that there aren't surprises that you go in and then you're see people smoking at these types of things. So I think that's why they've been established for cigar lounges of that type.
All right, I don't see any additional questions from the committee. Thank you very much for your testimony. We do have additional witnesses signed up from the bill. Just checking, Molly O'Hara, that was her signing up for you. Is that?
Yes,
or she-
correct.
Okay. All right, so we'll move to the next panel of witnesses. Eric Galley, Clifford Mitchell, Jack Malani, Kathleen Hoke, Melvin Thompson, and Ramey Eck. Good afternoon. I think I have enough chairs, so you all can get started when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Eric Galley, and I'm very proud to say that I was sitting in this room when the great Senate Finance Committee passed the first version of the Clean Indoor Air Act in 2007. And it is the one and only bill signing that I have hanging in my office was when the passage of the Clean Indoor Air Act. And I represent the American Heart Association, by the way, in strong opposition to the bill. I've been following the Clean Indoor Air Act since 2007, and I can tell you it would be news to me to know that any counties are exempted from it. As far as I know, and we've all been sitting here reading, there are no counties exempted from the bill, from the Clean Indoor Air Act. This would be a very unique exemption. And this bill is about smoking, and it is about public health. And we would urge you to not set the precedent. And just imagine who's going to be here next year. If you allow this exemption for this one place, just imagine how many bills you're going to have next year for every other place that was told originally that they couldn't have smoking and alcohol, and now we'll come back and do it. So we would urge you to do an unfavorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Clifford Mitchell, Director of the Environmental Health Bureau at the Maryland Department of Health. And thank you for the opportunity to be here in opposition to this bill. For 15 years, Maryland's children, workers, and all of its citizens have enjoyed the benefits of clean indoor air and all of those health and economic benefits which come from being not exposed to the hazards and costs of environmental tobacco smoke. Part of the success of the Clean Indoor Air Act has been the legislature's creation of a clean bill, allowing exemptions for tobacco retailers, but which remained and has remained uncluttered over the years and uncompromised by amendments or exemptions. The department has consistently opposed efforts like this bill to amend the act, recognizing as soon as the doors are opened, there will be scores of requests for such exemptions. And I want to talk a little bit about the need for this, because there is no need in my mind to add an additional exemption. The tobacco retailers exemption, which exists already, and I have to add parenthetically, some of you may know, I actually was the primary author of the regulations enabling the Clean Indoor Air Act at the Department of Health. It is one of the signal accomplishments of which I am most proud. So I can speak with some authority on the issue of the exemptions. The department has worked very closely with retailers all over the state and other establishments whenever the question comes up about whether a tobacco retailer whose primary purpose is the retail sale of tobacco or tobacco-related products, and for whom the sale of other products is incidental And we have worked successfully with those retailers all over the state since the creation of the Clean Indoor Air Act. So just to be clear, there is a mechanism moving forward for establishments that meet those criteria. We have applied those consistently. And so I ask, and the department asks, for an unfavorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Finance Committee. For the record, Jack Malani, Legislative Co-Chair, Maryland State Licensed Beverage Association. Our association in 1995, when the ban was first proposed, actually went and found sponsorship in the House and the Senate, was able to get an exemption for our restaurants and bars. For those who may remember, this battle went on for a long time, I think 10, 12 years. And towards the end, we told our members, look, it's going to be banned. There's nothing we can do about it. You know, we took the position that it was going to be determined by the marketplace. At no point in time do we ever come before you and say smoking is good. I mean, I think we were very honest. We thought the market eventually would shake out and you'd have a few bars that would allow it. Majority of them wouldn't allow it, but you know, in your wisdom or your predecessor's wisdom, they didn't agree with us and it was banned. So now this bill comes along and I have members that have come to us and said, wait a minute, you can't have tobacco with an alcohol beverage license, but you can add an alcohol beverage license to a tobacco shop. I was like, yeah, that's what the bill says. I mean, and a lot of our members are like, we would love to do bourbon and cigars. It's a big popular thing right now. I said, but you can't. I said, and they said, well, they get this. Could we amend on to it? And I was like, look, we can try to do anything, but you know, I'm a realist. I don't think the intent was to give us all smoking. So we're just asking as people who had it and lost it to just consider that, you know, a lot of our members, some of the small corner bars, if you gave them the option tomorrow, would probably take smoking. I personally would not. I really enjoy not having to drop my clothes in the garage and walk in and put them in the hamper because it used to be awful. I did it and fought it as a matter of fairness that the marketplace ultimately would have eventually dictated where it was going to end up. You guys just hastened that a little bit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Kathy Hoke. I'm a professor at the University of Maryland Carey School of Law and director of the Legal Resource Center for Public Health Policy. I want to echo what my colleagues, and I'm saying that about the Restaurant Association and the liquor licensees. 15 years ago, we sat together at tables saying, okay, the Clean Indoor Air Act that we negotiated with certain exemptions and not certain exemptions made sense for Maryland, and you all, your predecessors, agreed with that. And here we are today. So I want you to look at who is at the table: the public health community, the health department, and restaurants and liquor licensees. This is a remarkable occasion. I don't think you'll see it too often, so soak it up. We enjoy it.
Did we get insulted?
No, Jack and I go way back, and I'm not even kidding. In any case, what I want to say specifically about the bill, a couple of things. Number one, this is not a smoking bill. It actually is a bill that's about smoking. The one thing that's different here is that you can't get together and either sell and smoke tobacco products and drink alcohol. It's the smoking that is at issue here. That's the big change brought about by this bill. This is not a local bill for the reasons you heard Eric talk about. This will be the nose under the camel's tent. And most importantly and legally, this is not a parity bill. No matter what you heard up here, there is no county in this state, no city in this state where smoking is permitted in an establishment that sells alcohol. If there are scofflaw entities out there doing that, they are doing so outside the boundaries of the Clean Indoor Air Act. You can read it yourself. It's the last page of the bill. The only exception that exists, and it doesn't allow the sale of alcohol with smoking. So we can work on enforcement, and I'm happy to get the names of the establishments they're talking about, but this isn't about parity. This would be about bringing about a huge exception in Wacomico County that would ultimately sink the ship. Thank you. I urge an unfavorable report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Melvin Thompson, representing the Restaurant Association of Maryland, and we oppose this legislation as it was originally introduced. We've had a lot of discussions within our internal legislative committee. Our concerns were about a level playing field. And we've had conversations with the bill sponsor about this issue. And as a result, the sponsor is proposing amendments that would allow this to apply only to a cigar lounge that is a members only establishment. And it would also prohibit them from selling food prepared on site. And so our legislative committee decided as long as those amendments are adopted, we would withdraw our opposition. But those amendments, again, are contingent for us to remove our opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Dr. Amy Eck. I'm here for the Maryland Public Health Association. And again, I'm usually here for alcohol-focused bills, but I'm here to basically agree with everything my colleagues have said here. And the one thing I want to add is historically, I know many of you know me working on alcohol bills, and this bill looks more like what we would see in the future. So what we see with alcohol is every year we come back, there's a constant drip, 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 chipping away at a strong public health focused regulatory system, which we have around alcohol for many reasons. Tobacco, we usually don't have that as much. Occasionally there's a bill here and there, but I see this falling right in line with what we've seen with alcohol and what is to come, as has been mentioned. So with that, I will urge an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Senator Kramer, then Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess this question is for, and maybe Ramey, good to see you. And thank you for all the work that you do and all you folks. I know two things. One is that the amendment reads, the license holder may not sell food that is, and this is the operative word, prepared on site. So usually the get around there is that there's a food truck set up immediately out front of the establishment. People come and go, and then they turn it into what is virtually a restaurant that under this license would be selling alcohol and permitting smoking. And if in fact there was to be no food somehow, if this were corrected, so that prepared or otherwise it couldn't be, we then are having the double whammy of this nose under the camel's tent, but we're going to have people sitting there drinking alcohol without any food. And so therefore there is nothing to offset the alcohol consumption. And now they have been drinking without any food products. And they're going to get out on our roads and be driving, even if it's in Salisbury. I think the pedestrians and the folks who want to be safe on the roads there have that right. So I do see some, problems and agree with your concerns. But barring the comments of my colleague that employees would know that they were going into an environment where there was smoking, would you agree that it was not a major policy of this General Assembly and the Clean Air Indoor Act to protect employees, whether they knew they were working in a smoking environment or not? Would you agree with that statement? Feel free to jump in there, Ramey, or anybody else.
That was before my time. I moved here in 2008 and consider that a huge victory in my very young exposure to the state, but I will pass it.
Senator, I was here at the table and that was exactly what they were talking about. Just to be very clear, the exemption for tobacco shops was specifically made so that when a person was in a shop and purchasing cigars, that they would be able to try the cigar that they were thinking about purchasing. That was the sole purpose of the exemption.
Okay.
And if I might add, Senator Kramer, we don't allow employees to choose to expose themselves to other toxins. This is a toxin you took out of the workplace for good reason, and it should stay that way.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Reedy, then Senator Hershey.
Thank you. And some of you, the answer to this may be yes, or I was there, but we do have at least two, and they are in the state that have a cigar lounge that serves alcohol for sale. And there's more that allow you to BYOB or, and I'm looking at one in Frederick that's the reviews say they're there and right next door is a nice brewery that people can buy their beer and then sit there at the patio and smoke their cigar. What do we say about that? How do we, what happened? And should we go back in time and take them out, and outlaw it?
I would say that they are in violation of state law. I think we all believe that if that exists, that they're in violation of state law.
But if we passed and this is our first year getting all this stuff, so I definitely am not an expert at the vagaries of alcohol law. I'm sure by the end of this hearing, we'll all know a whole lot more. But if I'm assuming they only did that because they got a license. But
So
I'm not
there is-
asking you to comment
Yeah.
necessarily, but I'm assuming if they got a license, then the General Assembly passed a law to let them do it.
No, absolutely not. There is no license in Maryland that permits you to sell alcohol and permit smoking. So if there are establishments that are selling alcohol and are permitting smoking inside the establishment, that is a violation of the Clean Indoor Air Act,
So
period.
they could be smoking on the patio,
There is not a, right,
theoretically.
Indoor Air Act. Yep.
Interesting.
And,
I
and
mean,
Senator, we're familiar with some of the BYOB, and that's fine, but our thing is
Because there's no way
licensees.
you can get at that in the law anyway.
And our thing is licensees, we cannot allow you to bring your own on our premises, so there's no workaround for us.
Well, the fact remains, we have this going on in the state. I'm imagining they have a liquor license that says that they can do this. And so that's a huge inconsistency. And I frankly, just as a commentary, or isn't that so, Madam Chair, I think we go way too far trying to protect everybody from themselves when we're legalizing marijuana in this state. And we're, never mind. Isn't that so? All right.
All right, Senator Hershey, then Senator Guile.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just Melvin, maybe it's for you. And I think, again, it's been a while since I was on ECM, but we
Yes, sir.
did talk about BYOB and corkage fees and all of that. So what is that law as far as bringing your own beverages into a restaurant? Is that solely determined by the owner?
For corkage fees, if you wanted to bring a bottle of wine into
Right.
a restaurant, you're asking?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, they would have to get that permission from their local liquor board in order to allow that corkage. And they could charge a fee if they
Right.
wanted to, but it would only generally be for those wines that are not available on the restaurant's wine list.
Okay, and that was, if I
Yeah,
remember.
we
that
we
was
had worked
something
on that.
You guys wanted
Yes,
to
sir.
make sure. So is there anything else with BYOB as far as laws that are on the books for that?
There are some jurisdictions that do allow BYOB, and it varies by jurisdiction.
Okay, but that's fair to that. Okay. All right. And then just out of question, Eric, you guys, were you all in testimony against the cannabis bill in the House delegates when it was brought up?
Well, my answer to that is that cannabis and tobacco smoke are two completely different substances.
Mhm.
We're not, probably not the place the chair would agree for us to go into anything about cannabis, but they are two different substances and they should be handled in two separate arenas.
So is that a no?
We weren't in there, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Testified for the Maryland Public Health Association, we did testify against the exemption for Clean Indoor Air Act.
Thank you.
The Legal Resource Center for Public Health Policy is funded to do work in tobacco policy. We did support some of the local health departments in better understanding the consumption site language that is in the cannabis bill,
Right.
and made sure that they have local control there, so that if they wanted to prohibit the combustible use of products on site, they could do so.
Okay, good. March
So-
9th.
Senator, if I may clarify.
Yeah, thank you.
If I may clarify, the Heart Association did put in testimony on the marijuana bill. My point is that for these purposes, they are two separate issues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Guile.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question may be for Senator Carrozza. The two, I'm embarrassed to say, being a senator from Anne Arundel County, that this is kind of news to me, and it appears that one of them is actually in my district, but be it as it may. For the two cigar lounges that you mentioned that have a liquor license, do you know if they are only allowing smoking out on the patio, or they're allowing it indoors? Like, for example, are they taking their drink and taking their cigar and going out on the patio, or are they smoking it inside? Do you know that?
I'd have to refer to Premium Cigar Association.
I don't know if anybody's able to come up to the microphone and answer it.
They do permit it.
Can you come up to the microphone and answer? I apologize for not answering this question when you were up there previously. It would have been more convenient.
Yes, ma'am. They do permit indoors.
They do permit it indoors?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I see no additional questions from the committee, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 795. Thank you all for your testimony. Colleagues, we're going to move around on our schedule a little bit and call up Senate Bill 765. Senator Carter, Baltimore City alcoholic beverages. And Senator Carter, you can bring your panel or anyone you have up with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got them. Happy Friday, Finance Committee, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members. Let's try to get you out of here quickly so you can enjoy some of the subject matter of your bill hearings today. So I'm Senator Jill P. Carter, District 41, Baltimore City, and I have a bill with an amendment. The bill is a necessary bill, Senate Bill 765. Basically, in the 2021 session, we passed a bill, and that bill restricted the hours of operation for an area along Frederick Road. Back then, that area was split between districts 41 and 44. Since that time, with redistricting, it's now all District 41. One of the proprietors sued the liquor board as a result of that, and the two parties were able to enter into an agreement. And as a part of that agreement, they basically consented to, there was a consent order that they would exchange, that business would exchange a Class BD7 license for a Class A7 license. In order for that to be perfected, this bill is needed to make sure that the final step of settling that, this is the final step to settle the litigation. And so with me to answer questions on that part of the main bill is Nick Blendy. But I'd like to continue with what the amendment does, and to talk about that and answer any questions on the second part, the amendment, is Arsh Mimiran. So the amendment, so that's the Frederick Avenue part. The amendment to the bill deals with the illustrious Cross Keys development. And last year, we passed a bill that would allow basically the licensing for Cross Keys so that they could have outdoor consumption of alcohol for the patrons, so they could walk through and kind of hear music and walk through and sip on some alcoholic beverages. But this bill simply is a timeline extension for that bill. It doesn't change anything substantively, but in abundance of caution, we thought it was prudent to extend it from the 6 months of that bill to 2 years. And that's all this bill does, is extend from 6 months to 24 months. And to answer any questions on that is Arsh. So with that, I'm happy to allow you to ask questions of the two of them.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Nicholas Blendy, Deputy Executive Secretary from the Liquor Board. I'm here for informational purposes and happy to answer the technical questions about the timeline or about the litigation and the need for that bill, but the senator pretty much got it 100% right. So, but if you got, interesting questions, happy to answer. Oh, and for the record, the board has no official position on this, but I'm just here for information.
Hello, I'm Arsh Murmuran with Caves Valley Partners in Baltimore. We are the owner and redeveloper of the village of Cross Keys. Senator Carter, I think, laid out what we are requesting as far as an amendment. Thank you all for passing this bill last year. It's been very helpful in attracting new tenants to Cross Keys. Our first tenant is going to be opening next month in March. And we've signed one other deal and we have two other deals in process. It's just going to take us a little bit longer to get them open than what we originally thought. So we're just extending from 6 months to 24 months to give us a little bit of leeway on the construction of those spaces.
And the board approved their license at yesterday's board hearing. So.
Thank you very much. Senator, I don't know, is this a city delegation letter forthcoming on this bill? And also, I wasn't able to find the amendment in the folder or the online. So do
So
you
I've
have,
got a bill reprint and I will forward it to the committee.
that'd be great. That'd be
Okay.
great. And the
And it has
delegation,
not yet been voted by delegation, but it should be soon.
very good. Thank you. Are there any further questions for the sponsor or her panel? Seeing none, thank you very much. That will
Thank you.
conclude the hearing
Enjoy
on
your day.
Senate Bill 765. I see Senator McKay here, so we're going to call Senate Bill 821.
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, Senator Mike McKay here to present Senate Bill 821, Garrett County Alcohol Beverage Act of 2022. Now, this bill is a simple bill. It's a very good bill. Did I mention it's a very good bill? It's very simple. We have no cigars. We have no axe throwing. We have, anyhow, but to get back to point. So really, this bill is giving the same alcohol license for large hotels to be extended to smaller hotels and motels in Garrett County. The bill also attempts to expand the authorization of a gift basket permit that includes alcohol beverages to be purchased from wholesalers, as well as expand the hours of businesses on Sundays. It will also allow access for nonprofits from obtaining licenses from multiple events. It has support from the Board of License Commissioners, the county commissioners, and everybody is in kumbaya. So I urge a favorable vote for Senate Bill 821.
Okay, are there any questions on Senate Bill 821? I don't have one at this time either, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 821.
Thank you.
I understand, Senator, you wanted to present a bill for one of our colleagues that wasn't able to be here today.
That is correct, Madam.
Okay, so colleagues, we're going to now turn to a statewide bill. We're going to Senate Bill 431, Washington County Alcoholic Beverages Class 9. Senator McKay, you can go ahead and present that. And did you have witnesses?
I do. I have one
You-
witness.
Very good. Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Committee, on behalf of Senator Corderman, the senior senator from the Washington County Senators. We'd like to present Senate Bill 431. Now, Maryland is a home of breweries, wineries, distilleries, and each bring their own economic development to the communities to improve the overall quality of life for the citizens we enjoy. Now, it's very important to do our part here in the General Assembly to help encourage growth in these businesses and remove unnecessary regulations on small business owners that operate such establishment. This amended Senate Bill 431 would simply permit the holders of a Class 9 distillery to possess a Class A wholesaler license and directly distribute the property they manufacture, which would increase the efficiency in distribution and bring Class 9 distilleries in line with similar distribution guidelines in other distilleries in the state. This bill was heard in the House. The person who was in opposition is part of the amendment. So we've addressed the issues there. This bill has been unanimously supported by the Board of County Commissioners and the delegation in Washington County. Would request your consideration, request a favorable report for Senate Bill 431.
Hello, I'm Court Meinelschmidt with Meinelschmidt Distillery. I'm one of the 5 Class 9 distilleries in the state of Maryland. First, I just want to thank you for passing the Class 9 distillery license in 2019. If it wasn't for that license, I would not have opened Meinelschmidt Distillery. We opened it in March of 2001 officially. Took a while with COVID trying to get everything open, but been in business since then. And what we're looking for, and I'm glad we worked with the opposition in the House, we're removing the prohibition from owning a wholesaler's license to be able to own a Class 8 wholesaler's license so we can distribute our product to other licensed retailers. So we're glad we were able to work with the opposition to it. Now they support the bill. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I don't see any questions from the committee, and I know that you are presenting this for another senator. I've checked online and the folder. I don't think we have a copy of the amendments, so we may, if you want to check.
If you don't, you will receive it very, very shortly.
Very
Like
good.
Manna from heaven, Madam Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Hayes.
Madam Chair, I know this was sponsored by the Washington County Senators, but I thought I heard you say statewide. And then in the fiscal note, it says class 9 limited distilleries. Are there other places other than Washington County that where these distilleries exist?
Yeah, there's 5 total class 9 distilleries in the state of Maryland.
You know where they are located at?
I don't know off the top of my head.
But there are some outside of the. county.
Correct, yes.
Gotcha.
And this is what it does is the class 9, there's a direct prohibition of owning a wholesaler's license. The class 9 is the limited distillery, and we just would like to be treated similar to the other 8 alcohol manufactured license, so to have the opportunity to wholesale our product.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Senator Vital.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just need some clarifications. So the Secrets Distillery, for instance, in Ocean City, is that what you're trying to do? You're going to manufacture, bottle and distribute it right from your facility? You're not going to go through a distributor? Is that the idea?
Well, so yes, currently we have a distributor. And the example is we've sold 3,000 bottles of our product directly from our distillery. One distributor multiple have said they don't want to take us on because we're too small. And the one took us on in May of 2001, and they sold 547 bottles where we've sold 3,000. We're small.
You're small.
And
Okay.
so who else would be better to sell our product than ourselves, to be able to go to the restaurants and the distilleries? And the example is we have a restaurant that's next door to our distillery. And I've got to sell it to the wholesaler who picks it up, brings it down the road to Montgomery County, and then they bring it right back and deliver it to the restaurant right next to us. And so there's limits, and there's, they have buying minimums and all that, where I could just sell them 6 bottles with a wholesaler's
So
license.
how many bottles do you produce a year about?
Well, in the last 2 years, we've sold about 3,000 bottles. So in the last 2 years.
Do you see any big expansion coming, or is that pretty much what you?
Well, so we're limited to 100,000 proof gallons a year.
Okay.
So we'll never get to that. And actually with our equipment, we'll never get close to 100,000 without a expansion of increasing our equipment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good questions as we all learn this very nuanced area of the law. All right, any further questions for these 2 witnesses? Okay, thank you very much. We do have one other witness signed up favorable with amendments on this bill, Bob Douglas. You can come forward. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Madam Chair, and thank you very much. I'm Bob Douglas, and I represent the distillers and the wholesalers. And I could summarize my testimony by saying, me too. I think that this is an example of the cooperative effort that can take place. In the House hearing on Monday, we outlined our concerns. We then met afterwards, talked about a way to solve this that enables him to self-distribute, but not in any way violate the 3-tier system. The regulatory system is still in place. And lo and behold, yesterday, with the help of the delegation, both on the House side and the Senate side, we received an amendment that I think perfectly does what satisfies what he needs and what we need to preserve the 3-tier system. So favorable with amendments. It's a good reason on why the House hearing should go several days before the Senate or vice versa. So we can clean this stuff up for you. With that, we hope for a favorable report on a amended bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you all very much. That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 431. We're going to go back to local bills now. We're trying to accommodate those that are traveling far, and so far, so good. Oh, I didn't see, is that Senator Washington? Okay, well, Okay, that's another statewide bill. Senator Washington is signed up on Senate Bill 815. So without. Oh, that's the wrong Washington. Sorry. Uh-oh, 1 minute.
Here we go.
Okay. Okay, thank you all. Need a little help this morning. There's a lot going on afternoon. Okay, we're gonna start with Senate Bill 347, Baltimore County Class B, Senator Washington, Senator Mary Washington, not to be confused.
Right, so maybe someone called up the wrong Washington, but since I'm here, I'll take advantage of it. The topic's not as easy as y'all thought, is it? I know, for real, absolutely, absolutely. Well, these are this is pretty straightforward. Thank you, colleagues. The opportunity to present to you SB 387. This will allow, sorry. Yes, sorry. Okay, what I'm looking at is the one for Towson University. Okay. Okay. Okay, yes, thank you. I got it. SB 347. And what this would do is would allow Towson University, as a few other universities, to have a special license where they are able to have events on campus without having to get a daily use permit. So right now, anytime they have an activity, they have to go to Baltimore County government and get a single day use license. So this would allow them to be able to do this. So it would allow the alcohol to be served at university related events. It would put them under the board of the license commissioners for Baltimore County. It would authorize them would authorize Baltimore County to issue them a license. And the license would, again, be sort of, would be an events only license for the universities. Other universities have this, and so we want to extend this to Towson.
Okay.
So I think I have, yeah, there she is. On my sponsor panel is Kathleen Maloney. She's the Executive Director of Government and Community Relations for Towson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. You can come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Get
Madam
started.
Chair, members of the committee. I'm Katie Maloney here on behalf of Towson University. And I think Senator Washington did an excellent job of just going over the rationale for the license. This is a license that was created in 2018 for UMBC. And this will allow us to more efficiently provide for alcohol at appropriate events. It doesn't allow us to have any more events with alcohol than we had previously. It just is an efficiency. So we're not going in for a daily license each time we have an event. So I appreciate your support for this legislation and I urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair has a question.
Kathleen.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this, and Senator, is this considered a county bill since you have to keep going back to the county to get every time you want a license? So it would be a Baltimore County.
Yes, it's not, it's coming up in our hearings. It just hasn't been
So
heard
we'll
yet.
have that in delegation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions for this sponsor or her witness? Okay, seeing none, that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 347. We will now turn to Senate Bill 381.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so what this bill does is it corrects an error that was or a typo, et cetera, that happened in 2020. And I have someone here from Baltimore City Board of Liquor Licenses if you have any questions. But the bill had to do with requiring a surveillance system as a condition of receiving a Class A or A2 and an A7 license. It was originally proffered as a Baltimore citywide bill. My delegation wished to be excluded into that. We didn't want to participate in the over surveillance of our constituents. So we asked to have an amendment drafted to just restrict within the 43rd district, just the requirement to have a surveillance system in order to get the license. What ended up happening, I know it's a little, what ended up happening is that it's being interpreted as restricting the ability of Baltimore City to give license to give the A1, A2, A7 license within the 43rd district. That was not the intent at all. So this bill, we hope, is correcting that. So I ask for your favorable report for that, and I stand here for any questions.
Okay, are there any questions? And I assume you're here. as
Oh,
you
sorry,
have been.
Nick Bundy,
Yeah.
yes, Baltimore
And-
City.
Yes, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Nicholas Blendy, Deputy Executive Secretary for the Liquor Board. Senator's got it 100% right, as I understand it and recall from that particular bill session. I think it was your bill, Senator
Yes, it
Hayes.
was.
Senate Bill 69, I think. It's
Yes.
the nicest bill of the session.
2020.
And yeah, the amendment was supposed to do exactly as the senator described. And lo and behold, a BD7 license holder in her district came, got his resolution from the Baltimore City Council as the A7 process requires. And when we sat down to reissue it, we looked at the code and realized that the statute that authorizes that exchange for a BD7 to an A7, it says that that may not happen in the 43rd district. It, by all accounts, 100% what the senator said, perhaps a rookie bill drafter, perhaps busy in the session. Somehow the amendment ended up
2020, so-
in the, yeah. Oh, right. It was
There's lots of
that
stuff happened,
session,
you know.
the March 18th sine die session. And yeah, so it got hurried, wrong place. She has at least one, possibly two constituents on Greenmount Avenue, I believe, who are ready to do it, and the community is supportive of. And if this bill were to pass, it would authorize the board to do the things that this portion of the code is intended to affect. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Hayes.
Just curious, I understand what is correcting, but does it also still restrict the surveillance that we had as a part of the public safety?
As it's drafted, it does not touch the surveillance camera. All A's, A2s and A7s citywide still, including the 43rd district, because that amendment never ended up there.
Right.
They must fill out that affidavit of compliance for a surveillance
Yeah,
system.
for now, we'll deal with that next year, yes. Or
Thank
later.
you.
Yes.
And we assume the local delegation will.
They will vote on it.
Excellent. So you'll let us know when that happens.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I don't see any additional questions, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 381.
Thank you all.
Colleagues, we're going to Carroll County. Come with us on a journey to Carroll County. We have three bills for Carroll County, so Senator Reedy will present all three wherever you like.
Thank you, Madam
And
Chair.
if you have any witnesses, feel free to bring them up.
I actually don't think I have any.
Okay.
I thought it's thrill you all that there's no witnesses. It is a beautiful place and you're welcome anytime to come to Carroll County. Madam Chair, would you like me to start with 304? Would that work? Okay. Colleagues, Senator Reedy for the record here, very excited to join you and present Senate Bill 304. Madam Chair and Vice Chair Klausmeyer, Senate Bill 304 was requested by our Carroll County Board of License Commissioners. It very simply modifies the seating requirements for our Class B, BR, and C beer, wine, and liquor licenses in our county. Currently, the licenses require the holder to have regular seating, but does not include that does not include seats at bars or counters. So we have to have regular seating for 50 individuals, but it does not include bars or counters. This bill is just changing the requirement to allow that up to 15 seats at a bar or counter may be included in that 50-seat calculation requirement. Both our Senate and House delegations voted unanimously in favor of this bill, and I believe that that's been submitted to the committee. So I would respectfully request a favorable vote on Senate Bill 304 and happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you very much. Any questions on Senate Bill 304? That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 304. Let's turn Senator to Senate Bill 306.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee again. Senator Reedy for the record, here to present Senate Bill 306, which deals with establishing a multiple event entertainment license. Originally, this bill had a lot about licensing fees that we basically, through a variety of input from stakeholders and in the delegation, decided to stick to the main point of the bill, which is this: the license that we're going to allow the Carroll County Board of License Commissioners to issue a well, currently they can issue a Class C multiple event beer, wine, and liquor license. But basically what we're trying to do is add a new license tier for 41 or more events per year, and the fee would be $2,000, which is consistent with similar fees around the state for this kind of license. We didn't have anything for something that high. We do have currently our Carroll County Arts Center that is really the only venue that right now would be using this license, and they were okay with this idea. They wanted to stop having to go and get multiple licenses over and over again. We do envision there might be another venue at some point that would use this, possibly, but generally it's for one, established for one venue to have 41 and more events a year, have this this license for a fee of $2,000. Again, the delegation voted unanimously in support of the bill and would ask for your favorable report. And of course, again, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I do not see any questions from the committee, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 306. We'll turn now to Senate Bill 393.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, Senator Reedy, for the record, here to present Senate Bill 393. We are, it's Carroll County Alcoholic Beverage Licensee's residency requirement. This is going to allow for residents of Carroll County to smoke cigars and drink at all establishments. Just kidding. Senate Bill, just we're really looking to boost tourism and just making sure everybody's paying attention. Okay. All right. Senate Bill 393 is legislation requested by the Carroll County Board of License Commissioners. Again, this bill would change the requirement that at least one applicant seeking an alcoholic beverage license on behalf of a club or partnership or LLC had to be a resident of the county. We're going to change that to just have to be a resident of the state. That's in response to, I think there's some litigation nationally that I was speaking to Senator Hayes earlier about this, some litigation that's making it, there's concern about these sort of protectionists if you only allow somebody in your county to own the license. So we're sort of trying to get ahead of the game and just go ahead and we've changed that to, you have to be a resident of the state of Maryland, not just Carroll County. Again, our delegations supported this bill unanimously. I believe you have a letter in the file. And again, I ask for a favorable vote on Senate Bill 393.
Okay. Are there any questions on Senate Bill 393? Senator, there is one piece of testimony in the file. I don't know if you've seen it, but we can chat about it offline. Just want to understand
sure.
it's
On this bill?
public health. Right. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is saying it calls for, this is 393, right?
Yes, the one yeah.
It calls for, instead of someone owning a liquor license to be a resident of the county, they can live anywhere in Maryland.
Correct.
Okay. Any other counties you know of have that statewide?
I honestly don't know, although Senator Hayes indicates that perhaps the city has that. And I honestly, it's brought to us by our licensed board of commissioners said they were concerned about this being an issue.
Yeah, and I know in most counties, they have a residency requirement. So, Madam Chair, I'm not sure if this would create a precedence as far as could we look into that if other jurisdictions allow that, and if this will create a statewide precedence.
Sure. I mean, the way it's worked, if I could elaborate, the way it's worked in the past, my understanding is you would have one of the people that's a partner in the business, even if they're just like a 5% partner or something, would be the one who holds the license.
Yeah.
We were told by we reached out to the business community, to the Licensed Beverage Association, and there wasn't really a lot of concerns this was going to somehow be a problem for anybody. But yeah, happy to look into it.
Well, yeah, it might be a problem, but if it creates a precedence, I mean, I know it'll affect my jurisdiction where you have to live in the county, and that's strictly enforced and so I'm not sure how we can resolve that issue. going forward.
We can look into it.
Thank you very much, Senator. I
Thank
don't
you.
see any additional questions, so that'll conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 393. I see we've been joined by Senator Gallion. So colleagues, let's turn to Senate Bill 654. And Senator, if you have a panel or others that you want to bring forward on this bill, you're welcome to do that at this time. 654 is Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Class HC license. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Senate Finance Committee. For the record, Senator Jason Gallion here representing District 35 on behalf of the Harford County Senators to introduce Senate Bill 654, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Class HC Health Club License. This bill would create a health club license in Harford County, allowing a health club to sell alcohol to its members. There will be forthcoming amendments to limit the type of alcohol to just beer and wine. Specify that the health club must have an indoor, outdoor pool and pickleball courts. Limit the time to sell alcohol from 1 to 9 p.m. Restrict the area of sale to the designated bar areas, and places a requirement that prepackaged food and or snacks be available for purchase. Also, the licensees would be subject to alcohol awareness training requirements. On behalf of the Harford County Senators, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on SB 654.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Keith Rawlings. My wife Kathy and I are the owners of the Arena Club in Bel Air, Maryland. We built the Arena Club back in 2003, so we just celebrated 20 years of being in business. Business has been challenging and coming through COVID, we were just looking for ways to really appease and help our members. When we were allowed, the state allowed us to open back up and only have outside fitness. We would take bikes out on the pool deck. We would run outside classes. We're really about serving our members. And we've even been told we've been looked at as like a sports resort. We bring in palm trees to try to create a nice ambiance and a great feeling for our folks sitting around the pool. Pickleball has been huge, and if many of you don't play, it's the fastest growing sport in America right now. And we're seeing the socialization of folks coming together and playing pickleball. And we just like to be able to have the opportunity to serve beer and wine to our members around the pool and also around the game of pickleball. So we would ask for you to be in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was trying to look up pickleball since the sponsor said it, but I didn't find it. I don't know about pickleball. I know.
It's
There's
fun.
So much to learn, so much to learn. I don't see any questions for the sponsor of this panel. Thank you for your testimony. We do have 2 additional witnesses signed up on this bill. We'll go first to Michael Krabs, who signed up in opposition to the bill. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I'd like to correct, first off, thank you, but I'd like to correct how we went in unfavorably. We are now, based on the board, the liquor board in Harford County, we are now in support of the bill. There was a letter submitted by the chairman, Paul J. Majewski, the second, and our vice chair is also ready to testify. It's Fred Merchant. You should probably see him on your screen. So with that, the amendments that were submitted by the Senate answered the questions that the commissioners had originally. And I'll defer to the vice chair for any further comments, but I'll be available to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for that witness? Thank you very much. Mr. Merchant, you can proceed with your testimony.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, thank you for the opportunity to witness before your committee. We have reviewed the amendments provided by the Senate, and now we are favorable towards the passage of this bill. The owner and the chair talked and kind of went through and explained to us a little bit better of what we thought. We had assumed incorrectly that he was running a daycare that served alcohol. That's what the meme came out, but that's not at all. He's going to do a very good job of limiting the alcohol service, limiting where the alcohol will be served. He's going to serve food, and he's going to ensure that there's good care for the people that are going to be more like a club, like you'd see at the Maryland Golf and Country Club. So this should be a positive thing for the community. And now we support the bill with the amendments.
Okay, very good. For those of you that are looking for the amendments, council does have them, so you may not see them just yet, but we do have them. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm not sure if these gentlemen are. Fine, they're saying president, vice president, is that, what organization are you with, please?
I'm sorry, I'm the vice chair of the Hartford County Liquor Control Board.
Okay, liquor board, okay. And you said you were against it, but with the amendments, you're in favor of this legislation now?
That is correct. We didn't have a chance to coordinate the bill with the owner of the club. And so once coordination was done and these amendments were made, it seemed that this would be a positive addition to the community.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I do not see any additional questions. For those of you who are listening or watching online, pickleball is a fun sport that combines elements of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. So now I get it. All right, thank you very much. No further questions. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 654. Senator Gallion will now turn to Senate Bill 738. And you can bring forward any witnesses that you have. This is performing arts theater licenses.
Yes, we have from the city of Havre de Grace here. Once again, good afternoon. And for the record, Senator Gallion, on behalf of the Hartford County Senators, to introduce Senate Bill 738, Hartford County Alcoholic Beverages Performing Arts Theater License. This bill would create a performing arts theater license to sell beer and wine 1 hour before and after a performance, during the performance, and during intermission. There is an amendment to be offered that alters the time the cast can hold a reception, which would be 1 hour before or 1 hour after the performance. Also, I know the wholesalers have an amendment and we are fine with that. It requires a purchase from the wholesaler, not from other retailers or manufacturers. So on behalf of the Hartford Senators, I respectfully ask a favorable report on SB 738.
Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee, Adam Rubchinsky for the record, representing the city of Havre de Grace. The city is in support of SB 738. If passed, the bill would establish a performing arts theater, beer and wine license in Hartford County, which could be issued to a nonprofit organization that operates a performing arts center. The city's arts and entertainment district is home to several wonderful venues, and the city is always seeking to add more. If passed, the bill is expected to have a positive economic impact on the city. And as such, the city is requesting a favorable report from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the sponsor or his witness? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. We have Steve Wise and Nick Manis who've signed up favorable with amendments. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Steve Wise here on behalf of the Maryland State Licensed Beverage Association. Senator Gallion referred to the amendment that we offered that he's accepted as a friendly amendment, so I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nick Manis with the Maryland Beer Wholesalers Association, ditto.
Okay, so I don't see any actual questions.
Would
from
you
the
like me to
committee.
answer, Senator?
I would not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you for your
Appreciate it.
testimony. We do have two additional witnesses who've signed up virtually, Michael Krabs and Fred Merchant. Mr. Krabs, you can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I should have identified myself earlier. I'm the general manager for the Hartford County Liquor Control Board. I've been in that position since last June. Prior to that, I spent 48 and a half years in law enforcement, retired May of 22. So I've been inundated with the liquor board mission. And I believe that this will be a positive bill for the Arts Collective in Havre de Grace. And how it works now is they were getting per diem licenses. This bill will allow them to get a yearly license so that they don't have to keep coming back before the board every time they want to hold an event where alcoholic beverages are served. Again, our Vice Chair, Fred Merchant, is here, and I will defer the rest of the information to him. And if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to stay around and answer.
Hey, thank you very much. Mr. Merchant, you can proceed with your testimony.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, my pastor and my wife's sorority sisters definitely say play pickleball. So the city of Havre de Grace is a great place to live and work. And we think this will be this has been a responsible operator. We've never had a problem with alcoholic beverages being inappropriately served or someone being overserved or underage. And we think this will just help the city of Havre de Grace and possibly encourage more business to move into Hartford County. So we strongly support this bill.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions for these witnesses? Seeing none, we thank you for your testimony. Have a good afternoon. That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 738. All right. I don't see any other senators that are visiting in the room, so we'll go. Oh, didn't see you back there, Dylan. You can come on up. We are going to go to Senate Bill 472, City of Annapolis Alcoholic Beverages Arts Establishment. This is sponsored by the senator from the capital city. Dylan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, and congratulations on your inaugural Alcohol Bill Friday. Sorry, I just ran up. I'm a little out of breath. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 472. It's a pretty straightforward bill. It's modeled after alcohol license or a beer and wine license that Garrett County passed in 2018. Basically, it would just authorize nonprofit organizations in the city of Annapolis whose primary purpose is dedicated to providing art services, concerts, and such, to allow them to get a beer and wine license through the city of Annapolis. We've worked with the city of Annapolis since introducing it to craft an amendment, and that should be submitted with the testimony. That would just increase the annual license fee from $250 to $1,000, and also clarify that the arts establishment can't have art as its corporate purpose. It has to be for nonprofit use. So with that, I would respectfully request a favorable report. Generally, just really quickly as well, this is really primarily focused for one nonprofit organization in the city of Annapolis, Maryland Hall, who has to continuously go back to the city of Annapolis regularly to get a daily license. And in 2022, they had to do that 66 times, and that cost roughly $50 each time. So this would lower the cost burden on that nonprofit organization and other nonprofit organizations in the city. And it would also alleviate a lot of bureaucratic hurdles for them. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for the opportunity to testify on this bill.
Thank you very much. Senator Beidle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dylan, I have about 5 questions. Actually, you'll get a letter from the delegation. Even though we're the Anne Arundel County delegation, we're supporting the city of Annapolis in this. So the letter will be forthcoming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, that'll conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 472. Okay, we go to Senate Bill 440, Senator Hayes. You have 4 bills, so you might as well take them all up there. We'll start with Senate Bill 440.
Quick. Did someone leave their phone? Their cell phone? I'll just set it right there. Get it. Yeah, they'll be back at some point. All right. Right. Good afternoon, members of the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Antonio Hayes from the 40th Legislative District in Baltimore City. I'm joined by Nick Lindy from the Baltimore City Liquor Board, just in case there's any questions, but this is probably one of the simplest bills that you'll deal with all year, right? So Senate Bill 440 is essentially, we just went through redistricting in Baltimore City. Alcoholic beverage districts are tied to our legislative districts. And so this simply conforms alcoholic beverage districts to our new legislative districts. I heard your favorable report for Senate Bill 440.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions on Senate Bill 440. So you want to keep rolling?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Senator Antonio Hayes, 40th District, Baltimore City. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, colleagues. This bill is every year the 40th. I'm sorry. Yeah, what is this? 588. Yep. Senate Bill 588. Each year, the 40th Legislative District work with all of our licensees to come with one omnibus bill for the 40th district. This bill does several things. One, it has been our practice in areas where there's high incidence of violence, specifically shootings and homicides, non-fatal shootings and homicides, to limit the hours of operation for those establishments. In the Western District alone, it has contributed to a 30% reduction in homicides and violence in this community. This bill simply expands the one as it relates to West Baltimore and West North Avenue, 2 additional blocks to the 1,000 block instead of the 1,300 block. It also established a liquor license from a just beer and wine liquor license in the Hamden community for the VFW to a beer, wine, and liquor license. It also creates an additional Class C license for a florist in our district to have alcohol only when accompanied by a floral arrangement similar to one of their competitors in Baltimore County. And I urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 588.
Okay, thank you. So that's a gift basket type situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, I
That's
thought they
why,
were
that's why I smiled and said I had one of these.
little gathering
when the former
indoors
bill
with
was
some
up.
flowers and alcohol. Okay.
Indeed.
So I don't see any questions on Senate Bill 588. That will conclude the hearing on that bill. We'll move to Senate Bill 589.
Oh, 589. Okay. Cool. All right. So it's fitting that we are having the conversation on this bill. I'm Senator Antonio Hayes from the 40th Legislative District in Baltimore City. And what was that? 2019 was the first time I bought this bill. This week, actually, Baltimore City plays host to the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Alliance. This athletic alliance hosts 13 historically Black colleges and universities. The conference attracts more than 30,000 visitors to the area. We were successful in attracting this conference away from the city of Charlotte to the city of Baltimore, with Bowie State University being our host. And so in preparation for this influx of visitors, we created this promoter's license to do several things. One of the reasons why the conference left Charlotte, because the conference is really about providing for and raising scholarship money for the 13 individual universities that or historically Black colleges. What happened was people had stopped going to the actual games and were participating more in the day parties and other events in the community as opposed to actually supporting the game. And so one thing this license does is create an opportunity of cost sharing and an opportunity for the conference to actually support the scholarships that go to the school, but also for all of our public safety partners, as well as our other city agencies. It then identifies where all of the different events are happening, so we can make sure that we have enough resources to make sure that our guests, visitors, and residents are taken care of. And so we were successful in getting an extension for the conference for 2 additional years because we lost 2 years during the pandemic. And so this bill essentially extends the sunset from June of 2023 to June of 2025. Secondly, after a meeting with Visit Baltimore and a group of promoters who have hosted these CIAA related events, the bill incorporates a few technical changes in the process after mutual agreement. And Nick Blendy, of course, is here if there's any questions that get into the nitty gritty of the bill. And so with that, I urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 859. And I failed to mention, Madam Chair, in the previous 2 bills, as well as this bill, we have support from the Baltimore City delegation with a unanimous vote for all 3 bills.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any, Senator Bidle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, I see a cover charge. It looks like it was added into this year's bill, either in advance or at the door. Is the cover charge going to go to the scholarship programs, or where will the cover charge?
Yep.
Thank you, Senator Hayes. For the record, Nicholas Blendy, Deputy Executive Secretary from the Liquor Board. The cover charge language is added to the area regarding whether a permit is required. So in that meeting with Visit Baltimore and the promoters, some of the promoters had felt that some of their competitors were being creative and saying, oh, I'm not selling tickets, I'm charging a cover charge, and therefore I don't need this permit. So ultimately, yes, Senator, this amendment to the language to add cover charge as a reason that would require a permit to be pulled, that would result in more revenues that would go to the liquor board, that results in that split to the scholarship fund between the city and the CIAA. So yes is the answer.
And just to
Yes.
expound on that a little bit more, Senator, you have to realize this is such a big conference. It's not just local promoters. There are national promoters that come from all over the country. And they take advantage of the largest venues that's available, hotels. Some do events at M&T Bank Stadium and other places. A lot of national promoters have a lot more resources and compete against the local guys that typically throw events in Baltimore. And so this is just, another opportunity to make sure that they're all competitive.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't try to remember what Mr. Hutchinson said. I believe it's the third largest basketball attendant tournament of any of the college conference tournaments in the whole state, of the whole nation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's almost as popular as pickleballs. All right. All right. I don't see any further questions for the senator or his witness, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 589. We'll now turn to Senate Bill 847. Senator?
Gotcha. All right. Last but especially not least, and this bill, I'm Senator Antonio Hayes from 40th District, representing Baltimore City. This bill is being sponsored on behalf of the Baltimore City Liquor Board. Senate Bill 847. This bill would implement an idea that is based on the experience of the Liquor Board working in participation with several other city agencies and various task force. Senators are all familiar that the city regularly sends out the Social Club Task Force in various locations throughout the city to ensure that businesses throughout the city are up to code so that the public is not spending their money in places that may present them with a health risk. Another task force the Liquor Board is a part of is the weekly multi-agency task force, which Mayor Scott implemented shortly after taking office. It's from this experience that the idea behind this bill was born, which is how can a liquor board be more effective in helping our city be safer and cleaner? This bill tries to make this happen in two ways. First, the simple change to Senate Bill 847 raises the maximum fine that the board can impose for a violation from $3,000 to $20,000. Why $20,000? That's the maximum fine that exists in Montgomery County, which is the city's closest peer in terms of the number of licenses. And with me, Nick Blendy can speak more about it. Second, the administration and the Liquor Board have been working very hard to figure out how the Liquor Board might be able to have greater positive impact throughout the city without overburdening its hearing docket and the staff time it takes to put the docket together. So the problem the city is trying to solve is thinking about how Liquor Board can separate its lower level violations so that the board's hearing time can be reserved for more serious matters they enforce. After working in conversations with attorneys and the Attorney General, the city's law department, and in discussions with county liquor boards around the state, the resulting idea is what is in this bill, and that's what's called the offer of compromise. How does this work? It's similar to how this currently works in Montgomery County. The board will review violations report, determine if an offer of compromise is proper. If so, they will send to the licensee with the choice to, one, accept the offer, in which case that it will voluntarily waive their right to a hearing, admit to the facts of violation as alleged, take the corrective actions prescribed by the board and pay the monetary penalty offered. Or the licensee can always refuse to accept the offer, and they will then appear before the board as all cases go. Upon receipt of the accepted offer, the board will then put the record of violation and the offer in the licensee file, issue a written finding that offer does not impair the promotion of peace or safety of the community, state the acceptance of the offer on the record at a hearing of the board, and post in the result place and normally post hearing results. Our liquor board hearings can be exhaustive. They could be just as long as our legislative days. This provides an opportunity for many of which are small business owners, not to sit through a whole day of hearings, but the liquor board to administratively, take care of some of these situations. And so with that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 847. This bill was unanimously supported by the Baltimore City Senate delegation.
And Madam Chair, if I may just clarify one thing, the senator is very gracious in who is responsible, but for the record, Nicholas Benny, Deputy Executive Secretary from the Liquor Board. This is a bill introduced by Mayor Brandon Scott on behalf of the Baltimore City Administration, not a Liquor Board bill, but and I do believe there's written testimony and support from the administration on this bill. I would love to take the credit, but it belongs to the mayor.
Thank you, Senator Mounts.
Yeah, that was a pretty lengthy administrative process. Where did that come from? Was that just created or was it taken from an existing process somewhere?
It's an excellent question, Senator. It's I believe it's rule number 8 in the Montgomery County Liquor Board rules and regulations. This is largely modeled after a process that has worked for several years in Montgomery County, and they are the model. That's the answer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Thank you very much. I don't see any additional questions, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 387. Colleagues, we are going to turn to Senate Bill 519, Charles County Senators. Senator Ellis. Unlicensed establishments, and you have a panel coming forward. That's great.
you, Madam
Good
Chair.
afternoon. You can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues, and Vice Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 519, which will correct a loophole in our Charles County alcoholic beverage regulations. Imagine a regular business, has nothing to do with alcohol, could be a bakery, a barber shop, a salon, tanning salon, whatever, nail salon, that after their regular business is over, they decide to invite the general public in to have drinks, bring your own drinks. And as long as they have non-live entertainment, like a DJ or a boombox, they can go all night as loud as they want. And there's no regulation that the county can use to stop that particular endeavor. So Senate Bill 519 will close that loophole, will say that you cannot, as a business, again, as business only, not individuals, as a business, just invite the public in to have a big party. They bring their own alcohol and create all kinds of disturbance. Now, most people who do this kind of activity don't result in disturbances and criminal activity, but you have a few bad players out there. One rotten apple always spoils the entire barrel, right? But you have a few rotten players out there who do this time and time again, knowing that nothing can be done to shut them down. So this Senate Bill 519 will close that loophole and allow our law enforcement partners in Charles County to regulate these bad players. On the panel today, we have Judge Jerome Spencer, lawyer for the Sheriff's Office, and Sergeant Gilroy, who will give their testimony and will all be available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jerome Spencer. I'm the General Counsel of the Charles County Sheriff's Office. I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Troy Berry and the Sheriff's Office. With me is Sergeant Christina Gilroy. She's the supervisor of Community Police Unit, and she's also in charge of the Alcohol Enforcement Unit in Charles County. So Senator Ellis said, in Charles County, the current law prohibits an unlicensed establishment from allowing alcohol on the premises if they have live entertainment. And the key words there is if they have live entertainment. Many other jurisdictions, 10 other jurisdictions, have their own version of what we call in Charles County a bottle club rule without that live entertainment exception on there. We have encountered, Sergeant Gilroy is going to tell you about some of the situations we've dealt with where we have these unlicensed establishments having the alcohol consumed there without getting an alcohol license permit. All this bill does remove live entertainment from the Charles County Code. It puts us on par with 10 other jurisdictions, and it gives an additional tool to deal with the issues that come up with when these events go on. As Senator Ellis said, it's not the one time and done. Frequently, we educate when we can, mitigate when we can, but we would go to the same places over and over again. We have collateral consequences with that activity, including assaults, disorderly conduct, some drug activity. We even had a homicide at one of these recurring events in our county. So we asked for a favorable report, and we want to very much thank Senator Ellis for his leadership and support of this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair and the committee, thank you for having me. I'm Sergeant Gil with Charles County Sheriff's Office. So between 2019 and 2022, we became more and more of these bottle clubs. It was known in these establishments attempted to apply for alcohol permits and were denied, or many did not apply at all. Charles County Sheriff's Office responded to these establishments multiple times a week, much less a day, to some of the incidents, which included disorderly conduct, loud music, disturbing the businesses and residences, drinking in public and being disorderly, assault, domestic violence activity, drug activity, gang activity, and some did escalate after multiple times into first-degree assaults, robbery, armed robbery, and in one case, a shooting resulting in a homicide. Not only do Charles County Sheriff's Office respond for criminal activity, emergency services, ambulances have also responded for passed out patrons, check the welfare, and other medical assistance linked to these establishments. Non-licensed establishments are not required to abide by alcohol-related rules and laws, which does not, for example, not allowing us to regulate the closing by 2 a.m., the oversight of underage drinking, and server training for these establishments. Establishments are required to show proof of purchase of alcohol from state-approved vendors to ensure that alcohol is safe. And these establishments, you do not. In these types of establishments, homemade or mixed alcohols brought in and passed around, which causes concerns for citizens' health. There's no enforcement action on the owner of the establishment, usually in these situations by law enforcement, to stop the behavior. I hope with the ability to enforce this types of establishments that we can prevent them from doing this, for becoming a place where drug and gang activity occur, and keep the community safe.
Thank you. Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about, we hadn't dealt with, I'm a member of the Frederick County delegation. We had an issue. There's an issue in Frederick City, which is not my district, but in Frederick, we had some debate and discussion about that they wanted to change some laws relating to BYOB. Is this at all does this deal with BYOB at all? Or is these places, can you give me an example without naming a place? Is it like a place where people have like bands and musical acts come in, or what?
So bottle club is a word that appeared back in Article 2B, when we had Article 2B for this kind of thing. BYOB is probably a synonym. I'm not sure it's exactly the same, but it's a synonym. So an example might be a nail salon. So it's a nail salon. You expect there to be having nails. And yet what would happen after, maybe not necessarily after hours, there would be these large gatherings of people. The business would invite people to come to their establishment with lots of alcohol, and the activity spills out into parking lots, surrounding areas, causes disturbances. So it's and
that's what happens here, is what you're saying in Charles.
Yes,
that's what
so there are establishments that aren't licensed to provide alcohol, don't go through the licensing process, and then there's no way to control or mitigate that behavior other than responding time after time after time.
Can you not just arrest those people?
So the individuals who participate in the actual illegal behavior, yes. But you have the business owner who, and to be fair, we've never quite figured out what their profit motive is for this. Must be they're getting something out of it, but there's nothing we can cite the owner with to say, hey, this person had drugs in a parking lot. If in the Charles County law, and currently if they have live entertainment, we can cite them for violating 18-2501, the statute issue here. Because there's no live entertainment, we can't cite them for violating the statute.
So by putting this in now, you're saying if you're a venue where alcoholic beverages are not normally sold, served, or not legally sold, served, right, then we can
cite you for violating the statute.
Okay, gotcha. And then there's the exceptions for obviously like a hotel or motel, which are in here. Okay, all right. I was just trying to understand it better, mostly because we didn't move forward on something in Frederick because we felt like the solution that was offered was like way over the top to capture like every business owner in the county. So we're trying to figure out how to split
It's
the
not,
apple.
that's
or
not the
split
intent here. As Senator Ellis said, the goal here is to deal with the repeat offenders.
Right. Yeah, it's very tightly written. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions on this bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator, did your delegation have an opportunity to take up Senate Bill 519?
There is a letter in my folder that's like unsigned, so
Oh,
we need
in
to get it
yours.
signed and get
Okay.
turned into the committee.
Great,
Thank you,
that'll be
Madam Chair.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Seeing
Madam
no
Chair.
further questions, that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 519. We are ready for statewide bills. So we will start with Senate Bill 322, Senator Vital. That is alcoholic beverages class 4 limited winery license food service. If you have a panel, Senator, feel free to bring them forward with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's give them just a minute. Well, what I've learned today is we're going to drink while we swim, play pickleball, basketball, but my bill's about eating, not about drinking. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for hearing Senate Bill 322. This is very simple. You know, our breweries can serve food. We just want our wineries to serve food, not just for special occasions and not just from food trucks, but if a winery would like to serve food along with their wine, we think they should be able to do that. So I've submitted written testimony, but it's just that simple. So if I can have my panel speak, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Eric Allen from Linganore Wine Cellars. We are the oldest singly owned and operated winery in the state of Maryland. We started the winery, I was 9 years old. 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't be here because, you know, food service and extended hours wasn't a model back then. But today, it really is, you know, having people stay at your place, consuming alcoholic beverages without the proper food service is worrisome, honestly. And consistently finding food trucks to show up at your property is typically very difficult. You know, we have dog days on Thursdays, and having that food truck come in on Thursdays, and you know, and it's an event, so we can stay open past 6 o'clock. It's, you know, really just a formality of cleaning up the law and moving forward, so we don't have to, you know, have these little kind of dog and pony shows kind of thing. You know, eating while you're drinking, we all for that, and allowing us to go a little later for normal business. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Rachel Lowe Littman. I am the granddaughter, a winemaker for Lowe Vineyards and located in Mount Airy, Maryland. We are the 4th oldest existing winery in the state of Maryland. So we are, I guess, 5 years younger than Linganore is. And the one thing that is really important to consider is that when people go to a winery, I think if you were to visit a winery, you would expect an experience that is more so not as what my grandfather used to say back, 40 years ago, where people would come, they would come, try wine, buy wine, leave. And now people come and they like to set up camp. They like to play board games, and they want to have a wine and dined experience. It's not where people just come and grab and go. So we want to be really responsible as producers who are creating a product. If we want to be considered as someone who is, or wineries that are providing an experience of what is expected of us. So something that is a little bit beyond a list of what you would consider for, a baseball concession stand is going to be pretty necessary, because that's what's available on that list at the moment. So if you could consider that kind of to push that bill, and also help us with extending hours. It's also very helpful for our wine club members to come after hours, after work, to come and pick up wine. That would be extremely helpful. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Matthew Boley on behalf of the Maryland Wineries Association in support of this legislation. I will be brief as this legislation had no opposition in the House, and I'm not aware that it had any opposition filed for this hearing today. I'll speak to the legislation as introduced and the legislation with the sponsor amendment, and glad to answer any questions. This legislation is introduced as conforming. It enables the same privileges that farm breweries currently have under the law. The legislation with the included sponsor amendment is to address a question we recently received in Carroll County. The 2010 Maryland Winery Modernization Act enables wineries to sell or serve certain foods you see listed in the current statute. Legislative intent from that act demonstrates that prepared foods were contemplated when the legislation was enacted. This amendment codifies that even if a winery chooses not to become a food establishment, it will by right of its license be able to prepare the list of foods that are already enumerated in statute. It makes sense that our winery should be able to prepare the enumerated foods in the list, such as pizza, soup, chili, and baked goods. I urge a favorable report.
Okay, I don't see any questions for you, Madam Chair, or your panel.
Well, now I learned we can drink and play board games. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I hope we can have a favorable report. Thank you.
Oh, Madam Chair, I'm calling her Madam Chair, Executive Norms, it's Monday. But do you have an amendment? I heard someone mention a sponsor amendment.
Yes, it was. If not, we'll make sure that you have it.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank you.
much. No additional questions. That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 322. Colleagues, we're going to turn to Senate Bill 448. Senator Guile. Alcoholic beverages, manufacturers licenses, off-site permits. If you have a panel, I see them coming. Good afternoon.
I'm here. Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair, fellow members of the Senate Finance Committee. For the record, Senator Dawn Guile here to present SB 448, alcoholic beverages, manufacturer licenses and offsite permits. SB 448 will extend the sunset date on privileges that have allowed our breweries, wineries, and distilleries continue to ship their product using a common carrier, deliver their product using an employee, and sell their product to go without prior restrictions. Our local alcohol manufacturers are an important part of our economy and culture. These are the amenities that your constituents want in their communities. These manufacturers have become economic drivers, both locally and statewide. Unless otherwise permitted, these are manufacturers that produce and sell the alcohol that they manufacture. And this legislation is a reflection of the changes that have taken place in alcohol manufacturing over many decades. As times change, consumer expectations change. Our laws need to change to reflect these market trends. With me today include leaders from the distilleries, breweries, and wineries here in Maryland, as well as our representatives who can answer any questions you may have. I am confident that during the next 2 years, all parties will convene and come to an agreement on how to best proceed moving forward. This bill provides the stakeholders time to do just that and provides our committee the flexibility to spend much needed bandwidth on the many other pertinent issues we have before us this session. Last, I would like to point out that just 2 days ago, I testified here in support of a sunset extension on telehealth provisions that were adopted during the pandemic. There is a parallel here on these matters. The pandemic created an enormous level of challenges in our communities, yet Marylanders have adapted, they've invested, and they have modernized. Just as we do not have all the answers or data that we need for telehealth, we don't have all the data or understanding here yet either. I would ask that these changes persist for another 2 years so we can obtain more data and a better understanding of the opportunities and challenges that lie before us. Therefore, in order to enable our local manufacturers to meet consumer demand, fully utilize the investments they have made in their businesses, and to provide support for them to continue recouping the losses during the most difficult of times, I will hope you will join me in supporting SB 448. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Brad Rifkin on behalf of Maryland's breweries, wineries, and distilleries here today in support of the bill, and I would love to thank the senator for her leadership in putting it in. So with respect to the 3 main provisions that we're seeking to extend, direct shipping using a common carrier, delivery using our employees of the products that only we manufacture, and the right to sell without restrictive caps to go. Take you back to 2011, the General Assembly made the policy decision that direct shipping for wine was the law of the land. 2010, the Winery Modernization Act made the decision that there are no restrictive caps for wineries. So fast forward to 2020, and we were forced, my clients were forced, otherwise they would have shuttered, to come in and ask for expedited and equitable treatment among the entire alcohol manufacturing tier, so that breweries and distilleries could take advantage of those things as well. And to think that at some point, the distilleries weren't going to come in and seek direct shipping rights when the economies of scale are very similar to that of wine, the margins are very similar when you're shipping. To think that they weren't going to come in and ask to raise the cap for the amount of alcohol they could sell to go beyond the 3-bottle limit that they had. To think that breweries weren't going to come in and seek to increase the 288 ounce limit that they have in law to sell to go, which is less than a 30 pack of beer. Of course, they were going to come in and ask for these things. Yet COVID forced us to come in and ask in an expedited manner. So we really hope that this committee sees the value in these things. We're happy to have a conversation with all stakeholders, but would respectfully request the 2-year time frame to have that conversation and keep this in place. And for those reasons, we respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Tracy, President of Sagamore Spirit Distillery and President of Maryland Distillers Guild. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee, for the opportunity for the members of our guild to come today and let you know how incredibly important these privileges are to our small business and explain to you why extending the sunset for 2 more years is incredibly important to us. So when it comes to direct-to-consumer shipping, we've made incredible investment over the last several years that range from hiring someone specifically for this to website upgrades, software integration, marketing, as well as packaging materials and others. And this is how allowed us to grow our business. Meanwhile, visitation from the distilleries from 2019 is still down 51%. And today there are over 3,000 distilleries throughout the country, not counting ones in Scotland and Ireland and elsewhere. There's not enough room for our products at retail stores. So allowing us to ship directly to rural parts of Maryland, folks that don't have access to these products or places that just won't carry our products really helps us grow our brand, grow our business. We just don't know why anybody would want to take away that revenue stream. But meanwhile, I do want you to know that our business with our wholesaler in the state of Maryland in 2022 was up 47%. So I don't think we're affecting them by any means. This is just an incredibly important part to our business, would mean a lot for us to be able to continue to grow. And I know I speak not only on behalf of Sagamore Spirit Distillery, but also on the members of the Distillers Guild. It's very, very important for us and appreciate you considering extending this privilege for us very much so. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jamie Winden, and I am the owner and founder of Lion Rum in St. Michael's, Maryland. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and for Senator Guile and her clear understanding of how important this legislation is over the next 2 years. Of the 10 years that I've been in business, the last 3 have been by far the most challenging, and we've worked tirelessly to find new ways to adapt to the extreme changes in the environment as well as consumer demands, both during the pandemic and in the massive wake that never seems to end. Thanks to the provisions in this bill, we were able to launch a very robust home delivery service. We serve customers across the state and deliver our small batch rums direct to people's homes. More often than not, this means that we are traveling to far-flung regions where our products are not stocked in local liquor stores, which allows us to continue to grow and expand our brand. Since investing in this sales channel, we've upgraded online ordering. We've purchased 2 very attractive rum vans. We've hired additional staff, and we've made over 2,000 compliant and responsible deliveries direct to Marylanders who otherwise may have not had access to our product. But this isn't just about boosting my direct retail sales. Our liquor stores sales of Lion Rum, just like Brian said, were up in Maryland 30% over the last year. And that's a direct result of our efforts in getting our products to new customers. So I really beg and implore you to extend the sunset of this legislation as our fledgling industry continues to struggle to find solid footing in a really competitive marketplace with ever shifting demands. Because honestly, the continuation or end of this legislation has the ability to make or break many of your small manufacturers over the next 2 years. So I thank you for your support.
Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Max Lentz. I'm one of the founders and owners of Baltimore Spirits Company in Baltimore City. We've been open for 7 years and we're one of the founding members of the Maryland Distillers Guild as well. And I'd like to speak a little bit about the bottle cap at the distillery. From the early days, the visitor experience has been an absolute irreplaceable part of building our brand in Baltimore City. We started very small, then we moved to a larger facility shared in the Union Collective, and we've opened a new tasting room during the pandemic years as well, all to encourage a better visitor experience, which we consider a tourism experience at its heart. We have over 20 SKUs at Baltimore Spirits Company, and some of those historically we've got a lot more, but currently we've got 20 and 7 of them are only available at the distillery. The bottle cap before 2020 was 3 bottles per person. So if a visitor from Pennsylvania came into the city and wanted to visit the Maryland distilleries and visited mine and loved everything and wanted to take home their favorites or gifts for other people, we wouldn't really be able to let them. And it was a real disappointment to spend a couple of hours with tourists trying to turn them into a brand champion and then kind of send them out the door without being to kind of fulfill the goal of visiting. Our wholesale has been up every year from 2020 through 2022. We've just closed our books and had a lovely year with our distributor who we love. The goal of visiting the distillery is to convert lifetime customers who purchase bottles everywhere they go in the state and out of state. And we just like the opportunity to continue to do that.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rob DeFord. I'm president of Bordy Vineyards, Maryland's first licensed winery. We were established in 1945. I'm sort of the odd man out here because I already have the privileges that are being spoken of by the distillers and breweries. I'm here to support them. We've had the right to ship directly to consumers since 2011. But when I became president of Bordy in 1980, I learned that marketing local wine is an awful lot, is much more difficult than I thought. I was trained to make wine in California. I'm a native Marylander, but I was never taught how to sell it. So I had this bright idea, why not have catalog sales? So I came to this body in 1981 and testified the first time. I think Senator Marcus might have been in the room. And I think he was eating fried chicken during my testimony. And 30 years later, we got the bill. It took 30 years. I can say that in the past 12 years since we've had the bill, it would be fair to look at that experience to estimate its true impact on an industry. For Maryland wineries, direct shipping has been an unmitigated blessing, particularly during COVID. It's an essential part of our marketing strategy and an economic lifeline in a crowded marketplace, as you've heard from these folks here, dominated by national and international brands. Telling our personal stories and encouraging people to try our products when they're often hard to find is what direct shipping is all about. During the pandemic, direct shipping saved our company, and that's not an exaggeration. It was really our one lifeline. With respect to limiting the number of bottles that a producer can sell to visitors, we've also been there. The original Class 3 winery license only allowed a quart per person per year. That was changed in the 1970s and then again codified in 2010 with the Winery Modernization Act. So essentially, we have gained these privileges over time. I think my colleagues should have the same rights that we have. I will add that for the entire 78 years that we've been in business, we've enjoyed a very productive relationship with our distributors, and we value what the stores do enormously. The net effect of direct shipping has been to grow our business, not to shrink it. So thank you very much. I urge your favorable support.
Thank you very much. I think we heard from everyone on the panel, correct? Okay, we're going to Senator Kramer, followed by Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad, I guess this is a question for you, please. I'm trying to, and I appreciate the conversation you and I had just the other night about the issue, And one of the things that you had, it said was, well, regular stores were open throughout the pandemic. They didn't have to close. And this is an industry segment that was hit hard during the pandemic. And granted, we did make this exemption during the pandemic, but if the stores were open, why could the industry not have still continued to maintain their sales through the stores just as they had been doing up until the pandemic? So the stores didn't close, they were kept open, they were held harmless. What I'm not sure about is this particular segment of the industry. Could they not have continued to distribute to the stores and that were open during the entirety of the pandemic? So can you give me a little bit of?
Sure, I can take a crack at that, and then probably those that actually had their businesses truly impacted can give you a better answer. But I think from the perspective of the industry, a number of these licensees had to shut their doors to the public. So they're reliant, many of them are reliant on people coming in, the foot traffic coming in from a tourist perspective and local, economic driving perspective, people coming into the premises and consuming there.
So you're saying the tasting
room and the tap rooms are very integral.
Okay.
Yet at the same time, in order for these businesses to truly grow, because the market is incredibly saturated, it just is, it's super competitive. For them to grow and grow their brand and promote it throughout the state, we had to open up these channels, particularly for the distilleries and the breweries, because they didn't have these capabilities.
All right, but can we pause on that thought? And I'm not looking to interrupt you.
Of course.
But it sounds like now what you're saying is you're making the case for just changing the business model altogether, not related to the pandemic, but you're advocating for just changing the business model in its entirety, regardless of the pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever. And it sounds like maybe that's the conversation rather than we just need to extend another year, we need to extend another 2 years. It sounds like that's more like the conversation you're looking to have.
That's a great point, Senator, and I won't dispute that. I think we do believe that these things should be permanent. We do believe that parity should be across the board in the entire manufacturing tier. At the same time, because I know that the opponents brought up in the House hearing, and I received a number of calls from members of my associations that I represent, that because COVID is quote unquote over, that these things should terminate. And as I said in my testimony, a number of these things at some point we were going to bring up, it was just expedited because of COVID. But that being said, we're asking for a 2-year sunset extension on these things to eventually come to the table and figure it out. But a number of my clients have not come anywhere near recovering the losses that they incurred. I mean, I can't begin to tell you how devastating it was to have your door shuttered. So part of this is, if we're really talking about just extending because of quote unquote COVID, then, maybe it's a 10-year sunset extension. I don't mean to, but a lot of these businesses truly lost an enormous amount of revenue. So these were things that kept them afloat and the lights on. But certainly speaking, we do think that, these privileges should continue.
What percentage would you say of the brewery licenses are direct shipping at the moment?
Very low.
Statewide.
Very low. Very low. And I think part of this conversation, again, the reason why we did the 2-year sunset extension to begin with and didn't have the permanent conversation is because alcohol did shift to a new committee over here, and we were prepared to have the permanent conversation. And we will figure out when we sit down which provisions apply to which industries more than the other.
Well, but
so very, very low with respect to the brewing industry. And
so if it was very low, the percentage who actually did this, does that not sort of undermine the argument for going forward with it? In other words, do you have any handle at all on the percentage that actually went to direct shipping as it relates to the total number of licensees in the state. And if it's very low, it sort of sounds like it's undermining the merits of making this, either extending the change or making it permanent.
I think we want to be very reasonable. And I do believe that in that larger conversation, I think that's on the table, because with respect to the brewing industry, we wanted to open up when COVID hit so that everyone could utilize these things. But yeah, I believe that some breweries started out direct shipping, but the reality with direct shipping beer is it's cheap. Two, and just the product is cheap. Two, it's heavy, and then it's expensive to ship. So the economies of scale don't make as much sense as it does for the distillers, right? Where the price point is higher, the weight is similar to wine, and therefore the margins are very similar to wine in terms of direct shipping. So I totally understand the question that you're asking, and truly believe that we can come to that conversation when the time is appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad, I'll just stick with you. We have another bill coming up that deals with retail delivery, but you keep saying direct shipment. Can you just classify the differences?
So the direct shipping piece is through a common carrier. So a common carrier would get a permit, think FedEx or UPS, and then deliver it to a Marylander.
Right.
And then the other piece to our bill is delivery using our employees. But it is not to use independent contractors.
Okay, so if your employees deliver to somebody, what are the assurances that they're delivering to somebody that is able to accept that?
It's built into the law. So you're seeing the 2-year sunset extension, but the laws had clear stipulations that it had to be someone the person delivering has to be above 18. And then the individual that signs has to be above 21. You have to check an ID, and all of this is funneled through the ATC. So yeah, that's stipulated in the law.
Okay, and then if I remember, like as you said, wineries could do this already. And then with the pandemic, we opened it up to distilleries and breweries. And now we just want this piece of legislation, we just seek to increase that sunset for another 2 years and evaluate.
Exactly.
I understand. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just looking at constituents contacted me, and one person, a business owner and president of association of stores, says that this bill will destroy small businesses. So what's your reaction to that particular assertion? One person could answer that.
I'm hopeful, Senator, thank you for bringing, I'm hopeful that that's not in regard to this bill.
Yes.
Because I can't fathom how that's possible. Not passing this bill could destroy small businesses.
Okay.
I don't know how, as Ms. Winden talked about, her driving her product 50 miles up the road to an area of the state that's not carrying her product in a liquor store so that she can promote her brand and increase the awareness and make a sale somehow impacts, liquor stores.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that.
Your view, that wouldn't be an impact on any segment of the space?
I'm not saying that this bill doesn't impact the 3-tier system. I do recognize that. But again, I can't fathom that, a small manufacturer delivering their product somehow is going to eat away at a local liquor store. I just can't fathom it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Mounts, then Senator Vital.
Thank you, Chair. Who can utilize this? Is it all, what is this bill limited to?
This bill is Maryland licensees.
But so big, small, doesn't matter, any Maryland distilled licensee.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Senator Vital.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it was my understanding that the small liquor stores, or that liquor stores in general, really kind of boomed during COVID. They did really well. And are they continuing to do well? Do you know that?
I think they did do well. They were the one essential business open selling alcohol at the onset, but and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So I don't want to, degrade that. I can't speak to what their sales are because the reality is, the statistics that are collected don't necessarily break out how liquor store sales are doing. It's lumped into one category for all retail sales, and it's not possible for us to see from a year-to-year basis, but we can only assume that at least that first wave of COVID, that liquor store sales were certainly up.
I know this isn't a question for your bill, but local liquor stores can also deliver, can't they?
Yes.
With their own employees. They can deliver right now with their own employees. So
Yes.
so they can deliver as well as these folks mostly ship though. I mean, they can deliver too, but a lot of it's shipping. Manufacturers.
The manufacturers are utilizing shipping and delivery.
Okay, thank you,
Yep.
Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any additional questions for this panel, so thank you all for your
Thank you, Madam Chair.
testimony, for
Thank you.
participating. We do have additional witnesses signed up on this bill. Matthew Bowe, George Lynn, Lee Rosebush, and Nikki Sinner. Good afternoon. You can get started when you get settled.
Good afternoon, Matthew Boley of the Maryland Wineries, Breweries, and Distillers in support of this legislation is here to help assist with any questions that may arise for this panel as well.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
members of the committee, my name is George Lynn. I'm the president and a co-founder of Elder Pine Brewing and Blending Company. We started in 2018, and after our first full year, we were met with the pandemic. Being able to do home deliveries allowed me to keep all my staff. No one had to go home. No one had to collect unemployment. And also it allowed us to keep product moving, even though everything, was at risk of being dumped. To go off on the support for other liquor stores and small businesses, being able to get a small sample home delivery, it actually moved a lot more product in liquor stores because we were able to, have our customers reach out to the liquor stores and ask for us by name. They were more familiar with our product. The other part is it supplemented a lot of my employees' income, and that is what we've actually been depending on now more than anything else. And to remove it now would actually really make me have to shift a lot of things around. Other than that, I still think it's very important for people that want to stay safe, stay at home, to have the ability to get their product at home. It's brought a lot of awareness to our corner of Maryland, having a lot of farm breweries, a lot of outdoor seating. This has been a very good thing for us, and I would like it to stay. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Seener. I am the owner of Tenike Brewing Company. We are located on our eastern shore. After years of planning and construction, we were finally able to open our doors in August of 2020. That just happened to be right in the middle of the pandemic. One of our primary revenue streams has been carryout. Folks come in and buy cans of beer, cases of beer. From day one, our customers have enjoyed and appreciated the ability to not only buy our beer directly from the source, but be able to buy as much as they want directly from the source. Our location is very rural, so people often travel 20, 30 miles just to get to our brewery. More than half of our canned beer is packaged in 16-ounce cans. Without this sunset extension, we will probably lose the ability to sell cases of those beers directly to the consumer in our tap room. We will lose a good portion of revenue and have some very disappointed and unhappy customers. Thank you very much.
There we go. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and committee, thank you for this time. My name is Lee Rosebush. My wife and I actually own and operate a family-owned operation in a family-owned farm. So we are sort of unique compared to everybody that you've talked to so far. And in the fact of we actually own 130 acres. Our farm is in Melf, so it's actually part of the Maryland Agricultural Preserve. And we're part of the CREP program, part of USDA, which means we grow our own crops and we actually use our own crops in our products. On top of that, on top of the finances that go with actually using your own farm products, we opened during COVID. So you can imagine some of the financial issues that we have had. Over the last 2 years, without the ability to sell more than 3 bottles, we would go out of business. So to answer your question directly, Senator, this is an impact directly that would affect small businesses. We are inside Frederick County. We are just about in between Woodsboro and Thurmont for those that know that area. So it is a much more rural-based area. Because of that, in addition to the 3 bottles, we deliver most of our products to the farmers around us. Because of that, a lot of the advertising that we do, we have a very distinct logo associated with our products. Thank you, sir. And we take that and it is on our delivery trucks. So the ability to deliver out to other places actually makes a huge factor for us. Without, again, those 2 factors, our family operation would go out of business. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Have a good afternoon. We have 3 final witnesses signed up on this bill. Steve Wise, Jack Mavani, Nick Manis signed up in opposition to the bill. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
You can get started as soon as you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name's Steve Wise. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland State Licensed Beverage Association. And for those sort of new to the subject, Maryland, like most states, follows a 3-tier system: manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers. And my client is the retail segment of that. We have a couple issues with the direct ship aspect of the bill. And as was alluded to by the proponents, the privileges that were granted back during COVID covered a few things, but direct ship was one of those. At the time, it was proposed for a period of 2 years. It was extended and is set to expire this year. We went along with that, recognizing the circumstances, but the longer you extend it and the request or the suggestion that this be made permanent creates a serious problem for the state, and it's this. There is a Supreme Court case from 2005 which says that whatever privileges you grant to your in-state manufacturers, you must also grant to out-of-state manufacturers. It's a Commerce Clause issue. No one has sued the state on this yet, and I think that's because it was temporary in nature. The longer you extend it, and certainly if you make it permanent, every manufacturer that is outside the state of Maryland is going to want equal privileges, and they're going to sue to get them. It's unconstitutional, period, in my view, to extend this bill. And maybe somebody doesn't sue in the next 2 years, but I think they will. And certainly if you move towards making it permanent, as was suggested, you're clearly going to get sued. That case is about as clear as they come. So for that and other reasons, we oppose the bill.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, Jack Malani, Legislative Co-Chair for Maryland State Licensed Beverage. Years ago, when all this was coming about, we had no problem granting people buying it at the place. It made sense if people visit. We went along with it. During the pandemic, we were actually happy that the legislature granted privileges because we're all small businesses and folks were going to do whatever they could to make sure everyone made it through. We're just a little disappointed that it was extended once and now again. And I thank Mr. Rifkin for finally coming out and saying they want it permanent, because we said that from the very beginning. I don't know how much, I know this is new to some of you, but as a retailer, the person who is actually supposed to retail to the consumer, I'm licensed locally. I'm licensed in the county of Baltimore County. I can only go to my county line. So I accept that. I know it's a regulated industry. We all come into it knowing the rules. And during the pandemic, it wasn't the best situation, but the people survived. It was worth it. But now I have to watch a manufacturer have greater retail privileges than myself as a retailer. And it's just to us, it's not really fair. The second thing on the Granholm decision, I think if it was permanent, we're gonna have out-of-state manufacturers shipping in. And again, that will hurt the retailer because people will bypass us. I have members around the state who are a little irritated when customers of theirs who bought a particular product still buy other products, but they actually tell us that they're not buying it from us anymore because they're having it shipped direct. So to me, if you put your effort into I can tell you that the craft brewers that have done the best are the ones who come out and seek shelf space. They want to be in our stores because we see a lot of folks every day. I think if they were really, that's where the effort should be. Quit buying vans and all that and get out on the street and sell it to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the committee. Nick Manis here representing the Maryland Beer Wholesalers Association, and we're the middle part of the distribution system. Any alcohol that comes in from a manufacturer, for the most part, has to go from the wholesaler, which is who we represent to the retailer. And as Mr. Wise alluded, our main concern is with the direct ship, because that will definitely impact our business, especially if out-of-state manufacturers can ship direct, bypass us as distributors. A lot of these breweries in the state of Maryland are customers of ours. I think there are roughly 144 brewers in the state, as Senator Kramer alluded to. I looked up some numbers, and as far as breweries go, there's only 12 that have applied to the state to ship direct to consumers. And as I think you heard some of the brewers that testified today, that they seem to be, their main concern is what they can sell on their premise. Back in 2020, the legislature passed a Modern Brewerization Act, which increase the amount that a brewery can produce, increase the amount they could sell at their tap room, increase the amount that they could self-distribute, afforded them the opportunity to get out of franchise agreements that the wholesalers have. And not once did this, at least in my recollection, come up that direct shipment to consumers, something that they needed to stay in business. This was done, as was alluded to, by an executive order. The legislature extended it to originally December 2022. Then you extended it again to June of this year to really coordinate with what the restaurants were getting. And the restaurants aren't back in here today looking for an extension. For those reasons, we oppose the legislation.
Thank you for your testimony, Senator Guile, then Senator Beidle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wise, since you brought up the constitutionality, I'm wondering if your thoughts may be on whether a fix around that is to remove the direct shipping privilege into its own section in Maryland law rather than building it around a statewide license.
I'm not sure that that would solve the constitutional issue, if I'm
Okay.
understanding you correctly. I think,
You're not certain whether or not that may solve it.
I don't think I fully understand.
Okay, having it moved out as opposed to having the privileges tied to a statewide license. That's what I'm saying, just allowing direct shipping as opposed to having it built around a license.
I think if you allow it in any fashion for only Maryland manufacturers, which is what the law does currently, and you don't allow it for out of state, I think you have a constitutional problem.
And you mentioned this earlier, but over the past couple of years that we have allowed this, there haven't been any constitutional challenges to this law. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think the longer it goes on, the greater that likelihood goes up.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Beidle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question's from my friend, Mr. Manis. I won't pick on Mr. Wise. So you heard my question earlier about how well the retailers did during COVID. Every report to us is that they really boomed during COVID. Are the retailers still doing well? Do you know?
I don't represent the retailers, so I appreciate the question, but it might be.
Yeah, the
Better served to
retailers,
Mr. Milano.
Senator, did very well during the pandemic, especially early on, because folks were afraid the governor was going to pull the plug.
Mhm.
But I can tell you those levels have been diminished. I mean, there's not the hype. I don't think people are concerned about being trapped in their home without alcohol anymore.
So you don't think we're home drinking, is that? But we're playing
I can
games
tell
and
you,
pickleball, but-
Senator, I could tell you, we had some days that were tremendous, especially near the beginning,
Mhm.
but they all, that went away. We're back to our pre-COVID levels
Yeah, I
of
have
sales.
another sort of a question, I guess, Mr. Manis is, I'm all about small business and most of these manufacturers that testified today were small businesses working on their farms and in their wineries. And I really want to see them survive and thrive. So it's kind of a tough question for us to keep them from thriving and surviving. So isn't that so?
Yes. And so we have some wholesalers that are very small businesses also.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Senator Ellis.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So question I asked the sponsor panel, the text I'm receiving from business owners in the space. What's your opinion on this? If this bill passed, it will put a lot of small retailers out of business. I don't know if anyone can answer that.
Let me tell you, I don't know that it would immediately take us out of business. I think it depends on where you are, but I think what we look at is we have customers that we have that are telling us that they're having things directly shipped from the manufacturer. And if this was to go permanent and other out-of-state manufacturers started shipping in, then I think it becomes a very big problem for the retailers. I'm just thinking of a big, even if Guinness decides they want to start shipping direct, then I think, when those type companies get in the game, it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah. So it might be a little hit on the profit, but won't be as dramatic as driving people from the business.
I think it's like
abroad.
anything else. They'll be chipping away and chipping away.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't see any additional questions for this panel. Thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you.
That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 448. We're going to turn to Senate Bill 815. Senator Washington. And if you have a panel, you can feel free to bring them forward with you.
Yep, they're coming up now.
This is alcoholic beverages, retail delivery alterations, third-party delivery service permit. Good afternoon. Welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you. The chairmanship looks great on you. Congratulations. And I'm happy to be here in this great committee. For the record, Senator Alonzo Washington here to present on Senate Bill 815, which would allow Marylanders to have alcohol delivered to their home through the same familiar platforms that they have using other having other goods delivered. And it does in a way that works within the framework to protect retailers' choice and autonomy, maintain local control, and implement clear requirements around public safety and youth access. This bill would also allow Maryland to join 31 other states that would allow third-party delivery of alcohol and put Maryland consumers on even footing with consumers in neighboring jurisdictions like our neighbors in DC and Virginia. This bill also generates increased earning potential for individuals who deliver through these services, allowing them to maintain all the flexibility of being an independent contractor while having the opportunity to earn more based on the higher commissions and tips associated with alcohol orders. My panel will provide all the details you'll need about this great bill, and I have delivered my testimony in under a minute. Thank you. I urge your favorite report.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Chad Worrell. I'm with DoorDash. And I think, a couple of points I want to just make about this bill is, I think first and foremost, the pandemic definitely saw the importance of delivery, or we saw the importance of delivery because of the pandemic. As mentioned, 31 states across the country already provide some type of third-party delivery of alcohol from a retail location, including neighboring District of Columbia and also Virginia. In fact, Virginia is, I believe, the first state-regulated state where alcohol delivery is actually allowed, and DoorDash actually provides much of the delivery from the state ABC stores there. But I think, number one, it's important to note that how safely it can actually be done. DoorDash we actually have a dual ID verification program. So when you actually go onto the app to place the order, it notifies you that we have to do a scan of your ID. That ID, once it is scanned, is then butted up against different DMV databases across the country through a third-party vendor that obviously not done by DoorDash. It's a third-party vendor that actually verifies the date, ensures that the license is up to date. It ensures that the person that is ordering it is 21, and ensures that it is a valid driver's license. The order is actually placed. The driver delivers the product to the person's doorstep, and the ID is also scanned again, the person who receives that order at the doorstep, to yet again verify, that they are of age. I think it's important to note for our delivery drivers, the majority of which are women across the country, this actually is an avenue for them to earn more. In fact, on average, they earn over, I think it's a 30% increase on orders when they do alcohol deliveries. So it's definitely enticing to them as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and thank you, Senator Washington, for sponsoring this legislation. Caitlin McDonough here in support of Senate Bill 815. So just to kind of clarify a little bit what we talk about when we say we're working within the existing framework. Right now, retail licensees can deliver in Maryland. They just either have to do it themselves or use a direct employee. Under this bill, they would have to contract with a third party, or they have the option of contracting with a third party to do that, or they can use one of the traditional means. So you're still going licensee by licensee. That licensee is still getting their permission to deliver from the local licensing board. All those checks are remaining in place. And I think Chad kind of addressed how we approach youth access and ID checks in this situation. I have been working with the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission just to kind of tighten up the bill and make sure that it's enforceable and kind of reflective of our intent of the bill. So, were the bill to move forward, we'd probably seek some additional amendments. 2 would be clarifying just to make sure the language matches up with the rest of the alcoholic beverages article. And then some things that I believe are inherent in current law, but just to make it explicitly clear, we'd want to add clear language that third-party deliverers delivering under this bill can only deliver within the jurisdiction that their underlying retailer is located. So if you're located in Anne Arundel County retailer, you can only deliver to an address in Anne Arundel County. There'll be no crossing of county lines, and that's how it works currently. And somewhat in reference to the earlier bill, it is not our intent to deliver direct from a manufacturer. This would be from retail settings only. We didn't want that to be in there. It was not the intent. I don't think we could either, but just to make it explicitly clear, we would say this would only apply to retail licensees and not manufacturers. The only other issue I would raise is again, it's our intent to be bound by any local regulations that govern delivery in that jurisdiction. So we would tie our delivery permit to abiding by those regulations. And happy to answer any questions. Sorry, got a little discombobulated there.
You're fine. Thank you very much, Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess Caitlin or Chad, you mentioned you didn't intend to deliver from manufacturers, but it doesn't specifically say that. And Chad, when you mentioned, you kind of said the order's placed and then the driver delivers. So you didn't go either from where does the product come from?
So it'll come directly from a retail licensee. So the way it works, we're trying to work with, if I'm a retail licensee and I'm allowed to deliver, I've gotten that extra permission from my local board to deliver. I can do it myself, or I could contract with a third party to do the delivery. But all that authority is being derived from the permission that I've gotten. So a manufacturer right now, especially if the previous bill doesn't pass and sunsets, they don't have that delivery option. So, our intent is to just have that retail setting similar to what we do with other products, restaurants, other kind of consumer goods.
Okay, you say our intent, but is it written that way or is it?
So we've drafted this to a section of law that deals solely with retailers, but just to make it explicitly clear, we would just go ahead and say it. This does not apply to manufacturer or licensees. It would only be retail licensees.
And then DoorDash obviously is a bigger company, but this can be handled by a number of different.
Yes, this
type
is
of
not
delivery
unique
companies.
to DoorDash.
What you had mentioned as far as the scanning the license, assuring it's valid, and then scanning it when delivery. Does this legislation require everybody to do it in a similar fashion, or what's the requirement?
So, there are some nuances, I think, in the different models, but the statute does require one, that your deliverer be 21 and also go through a training to, check IDs and gauge intoxication and things like that. So that's on the deliverer side. And then on the recipient side, it requires 21 plus checks as well and lays out that framework. We've taken most of that framework from elsewhere in law. So it's mirroring similar practices in other areas of the alcoholic beverages article.
Are there penalties if a third party delivers to somebody that's not 21?
So I mean, we would receive a permit from the state. So I mean, the initial, we could lose our permit if we're found to be doing that. But the bill, I will say this, the bill does set up some liability concerns, and we did this specifically to address some retailer concerns. If we mess up, that liability is on us as the third party deliverer, not on the underlying retailer. If they, are doing things, on their end, their liability is on their activity, not ours. So we do have some separation in those liabilities. But yes.
And let me also just add too, I mean, the dashers that's what we call our delivery drivers.
Okay.
You're not aware.
Nice.
But the dashers, I mean, when they opt into doing these deliveries, not every dasher is eligible. Clearly, they have to be 21. They have to be willing to do an alcohol delivery. They have to go through a formal training. And I'm speaking broadly here. I mean, these are all the things that we intend to do. Through this bill, in Maryland as well. But that's across the board. And then they are aware when they make the delivery, if they don't abide by what is the law, checking the ID, scanning the ID, handing it over to somebody who is in fact 21, not intoxicated. I mean, they can be criminally liable in that case, just the same way that we would. And I would also point out too, that I can't think of any scenario where the retailer would be liable in this situation. I mean, the way the contracts are usually set up, you're liable if you did something that was illegal. If you were knowingly delivering or placing an order for somebody who's not 21. And I can't think of any instance where the retailer would be in this case. The liability would be entirely on DoorDash and the driver or the other delivery company.
I just say, I think my concern is you are a very well-established company that we've all heard of. But obviously other companies could get involved in this as well that may not have as much to lose as a company of your stature. So I just want to make sure that the law is written or it is identified very specifically for those types of delivery companies rather than just.
And I mean, and again, I'm happy to, work on the language to make it as clear as possible. We certainly, we want it to be tight because then it'll work better. But, in addition to kind of the criminal liability Chad alluded to, again, our delivery permit in the state should be tied to us abiding by these rules, similar to how licensees are they can lose their permit. And when, that economic motivator can be very strong.
Understand. Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ellis, followed by Senator Mounts.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. And could listen to your testimony. I'm not sure if I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Are you saying that this is like a enabling legislation, but the counties would decide to opt in or out to decide if each county or each city
Yes.
Will allow
So what exactly? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So how it works now is each local licensing board, it's not county, but the local licensing board issues the license to a licensee. They can deliver, but only if they go and get a letter of authorization from their local board. That whole process would stay in place. The only thing that changes is if they go ahead and get that permission and that letter of authorization, they have the option of delivering it themselves, using a direct employee, or contracting with a third party who is permitted by the state to do these types of deliveries and has gone through that training and all of that.
Yeah. Under
So
this
yeah.
legislation. Okay.
Yes, that's how this would work. So there's two checks. One, whether the local board would allow delivery by that licensee and allow them to deliver in this manner. And then the other is just frankly, whether a retailer would want to contract with us to provide those services.
Yeah. So currently, you're saying the local boards can authorize the retailer to
Yes.
deliver themselves. But this would expand it to
So it's still the authorization still goes to the retailer. It just would allow the retailer to use us as a tool for delivery.
okay. Yeah.
But the ultimate authority and the authority to sell alcohol still has to rest with the underlying
Okay,
licensee.
great. Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. I don't see any additional questions for this panel, so thank you very much for your testimony.
you, Madam
Have a
Chair.
good afternoon. I have Lisa Jones signed
Oh,
up.
yeah, she bailed.
Okay. All right, so we do have additional witnesses signed up who I'll call forward: Steve Weiss, Jack Malani, Catherine Hoke, Nick Manis, and Ramey Eck. You can all come forward and start when you're ready. Good afternoon. Thank you all for hanging with Senate Finance. It's been a long day.
Do you want us to go in the order you called? I'm sure. Okay, thank you. Steve Wise, again, on behalf of the Licensed Beverage Association, which is the retail segment of the industry. As was mentioned and Senator Hershey brought out in his question, the bill licenses a deliverer, a third-party delivery company at the state level. So that would be issued by the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. But as most of you know, retailers are licensed by local liquor boards. So while the amendment or the discussion from the proponents was that they would stick to those county borders if they made a delivery, they would not be disciplined or subject to sanction by the local liquor board because they have not been issued a local license in the same way that retailers have. And that is a concern for us. If you're going to allow this, and we don't think you should for other reasons you're going to hear, they should be licensed by the local jurisdiction so that they can be subject to sanctions in the same way that we are. The second concern we have, which I didn't have time to cover in the direct ship bill, but it's shared among both bills, and that is brick and mortar stores when they open on any given day. Most of you are familiar, a sheriff's deputy or undercover police officer can come in and attempt to make an underage purchase. That same level of enforcement does not exist when it comes to at-home deliveries, whether it's by UPS or by DoorDash. And that's not a slight to the liquor boards or to the fine gentleman behind me from the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. It is a heavy resource intensive thing to be able to go and do that. But from our perspective, we don't think it's a level playing field when we face that consequence every day, and whatever safeguards are in place for the third party delivery, the level of enforcement just isn't and can't be the same. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, Jack Malani, not to belabor any of Steve's points, but you asked about how we get approved. In Baltimore County, you go before the liquor board, and if you've had a violation within the last 3 years, you don't get this permit. So I'm not sure how we would reconcile those type things. The other thing that we would ask is that who actually handles this sale? Is this a thing where they're going to collect the money and hold it for a week and then pay us? Or is this a deal where we actually handle the sale and they truly are the deliverer? You know, if they want to do the deliveries, that would be different than actually facilitating the sale. The only other option, the only other thing I would look is later in the bill, they talk about coming up with a method to ensure that we retain control over payments. Well, the easiest way to do that is let us make the sale and they make the delivery. But again, I just think there's a lot of problems with this bill as it's written, and I would urge an unfavorable.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Nick Manis here with the Maryland Beer Wholesalers Association. And we have some concerns also. It doesn't stipulate that they cannot warehouse the product. So we wouldn't want them to go to, let's say, Jack's store, buy 40 cases of whatever beer they have, put it in a separate warehouse and deliver it when they have orders for it. Also, only to be able to be delivered during the hours that the retail licensee is operating, to make that clear. And, you know, confused a little bit, because if this was something that Jack's customers or other retailers were asking for, they would be here putting this bill forward on behalf of delivery companies, and, you know, they're not. So it doesn't seem like the customers are asking for this privilege as we sit here today. For those reasons, we oppose the legislation.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Dr. Ramey Eck for the Maryland Public Health Association, our Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Network. We were supportive of the Cocktails to Go bill from 2021. We helped work on that with a number of the people that are here, and we agreed on the guardrails that came into the bill and with the expected sunset that would come about to get us through something that was a life-altering situation that COVID was. Really what the data has shown us is that most of these deliveries are done with a point of sale ID check, and up to 58% of the time, these point of sale checks fail for underage youth. Additionally, we also know that studies show that some people who use alcohol delivery actually use it to continue drinking situations that would have ordinarily ended. So when I see this, I see a delivery driver who is not incentivized to not deliver a product that they're taking, loss of tip, loss of time and such, going to a heavy drinking establishment and not leaving a product if the person appears to be intoxicated. And again, they're the ones that have to make the determination, and taking that product away. That doesn't seem to be a very safe situation. And it also doesn't even get us to the point where they have to check the ID. It's also, as they mentioned, concerning that there isn't local businesses here saying that we would wish that we have this, but an out-of-state company saying we're going to come in and we're going to provide this service to you, which seems to be a service that not a lot of people are asking for. It would be nice if we actually had some data to evaluate of the actual home delivery and sales to go that was taking place during COVID. That report that was mandated HB 12 is not available yet. So I feel that the biggest issue with the enforcement is that there aren't resources provided for in this bill either for local liquor boards to be able to have that deterrence factor. So because of these reasons, we urge an unfavorable report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Kathy Hoke, a professor at the University of Maryland Carey School of Law and a member of the Maryland Public Health Association's Policy Committee. I just want to connect a couple of dots. I agree with what's been said here that Mr. Wise mentioned, and that is if there is no local enforcement, let me just tell you, there is then no enforcement. Even if this were locally licensed, that enforcement is incredibly difficult, time-consuming, expensive. But if there's no local enforcement, there's no enforcement at all. And what does that mean? That means our youth are far more likely to access these products by ordering them through a venue that they know is going to use the independent contractor who has hired an independent contractor to then deliver the product. One of the most powerful enforcement tools that we have is suspension or revocation of licensure. And without these being in that capacity for the local liquor boards, we really don't have that big pull that we have with entities like Jack, where he knows better than to sell to young people because it's not worth it to him. His license cost him too much money. Losing it even for a period of time cost him too much money. We don't have those same incentives built in here with the nature of this setup. Why we care is because the younger people start to drink, the more likely they are to have problems with alcohol, whether it's full-blown addiction or other problems, risky behaviors, risky sexual behaviors, risky behaviors behind the wheel, et cetera. All of that accompanies, youth access to alcohol. So for these reasons, we encourage an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 815. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we got all of the panel. I don't see any questions from the committee. Thank you all very much for your testimony. Have a good afternoon. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 815. Colleagues, we're turning to our final bill of today's proceedings. This is Senate Bill 672, Vice Chair Klausmeier, alcoholic beverages, use of alcoholic beverages for educational purposes. And I bringing your panelists forward. Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, you can begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Senate Bill 672, alcoholic beverages, use of alcoholic beverages for educational purposes. It is my pleasure to introduce Senate Bill 672 to the esteemed Finance Committee. This bill is one of the most interesting bills I've ever introduced over the years I've been here in Annapolis, the nickname of which I will explain in a little while is called the Sip and Spit Bill. The University of Maryland has a new fermentation science program under their Department of Nutrition and Food Service. In addition to learning about fermented vegetable foods like kimchi or dairy foods like cheese and yogurt, they also have classes about alcoholic beverages. Students in this new program will leave school prepared to contribute to several growing sectors of Maryland's workforce. Currently, to take some of these classes, students must be 21 years old. This can be a problem for younger students trying to complete their degree in 4 years who may not turn 21 until the middle of their 4th year. Senate Bill 672 will allow these younger students to take classes that may require them to taste alcoholic beverages. Now we get to the sip and spit nickname. Students in the classes who are between 18 and 20 will be allowed to sip and taste the alcoholic beverage they make, but they will have to spit it out. This bill is narrowly drafted to avoid underage drinking while still allowing these younger students to take fermentation science classes. Similar legislation has already been implemented in 14 other states. It is time for Maryland to catch up so our college students have every opportunity to learn about the emerging field of fermentation science. I would like to thank the Finance Committee for their attention and I'm requesting a favorable report on 672. But I also would like just to add my intern is she will not turn 21 until right after session ends this year. And she will be turning 21 then. So right now, if she were taking that class, she would not be able to even taste it. And so there are students of that age group that are right on the cusp. And then there's some that are even 18 or 19. So I think it's a great bill and I hope they'll be able to carry on in class.
Wonderful, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senator Klausmeier, thank you very much for your kind words and support for that as well. My comments were really going to echo exactly what you were talking about. Let me just say, though, that this is a program that we've been working on really the last 2 or 3 years. We initially went down this road. We did a market analysis. We contracted with Towson University to actually determine whether or not there was a need for a program like this. They did an extensive survey of the broad-based industry and found that this is one of the fastest growing sectors of the food industry in the state of Maryland. And so that prompted us obviously to put together a fermentation science program. This is really the most unique fermentation science program in the United States. Since it is in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, students will actually learn the development of the actual raw material, the product itself, as well as the transformation of that product into a value-added product. And if we are not allowed to have students under the age of 21 in this program, then this program really won't be successful. It will die probably a slow death, mainly because we won't have enough students in it as well. We thought we had covered most of the bases when we went forward with this program. It wasn't really until we visited with a colleague in California that said, are you aware that students under the age of 21 may not actually be able to enroll in your class because of that age limit? And at that time, we were not aware of that. And so we looked into this a little bit more deeper, and that's where we find ourselves today. So thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'm Shelby Watson Hampton. I'm here as the director of the Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission, SMATIC, and also as a proud UMD TERP College of Ag graduate as well. And I know there's some members on the committee that are also from the University of Maryland. So the process of fermentation is responsible for some of humankind's tastiest value-added products: beer, wine, bread, cheese, pickles, and more, where producers take that raw farm product and turn it into something more. Now there's a major at the University of Maryland that will teach that science of fermentation to a new generation of makers, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. The new major, which is housed in the College of Ag, will prepare students for workforce demand. We know that this demand has been brewing for several years, pardon the pun. There has been a study done that shows that this is something that is needed and it can provide bachelor graduate level compensation for people who go into the field. So upon inception, the program has run into the problem of working with alcoholic beverages with students under 21. As the dean said, this is not a new problem for the industry. California passed a bill legislating this, and so did 14 other states. That will allow students who are at least 18 years of age and officially enrolled in the university course to taste but not consume the alcoholic beverages in the classroom or laboratory under the supervision of their instructor. It behooves Maryland to not fall behind in this industry and for us to do the same. We want to make sure that the burgeoning fermentation industry has the chance to expand in our great state. Thank you so much.
Senator Hershey.
Thank you all and appreciate what you're doing. Did you look at any other states? You said 14 states, and unfortunately, we hear way too much about California and Maryland here. But are any other states just changed the law to allow, you know, the sampling of a drink under adult supervision or anything like that? I mean, we couldn't figure out anything else besides the sip and spit
Sip and
type of
spit.
thing.
Well, the other states, I mean, if you look at the other states, we're looking at South Carolina, North Carolina, Vermont,
Right.
Ohio, California, Illinois, Colorado. They're all really doing essentially the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Nope, nobody else went further and just said, we've got an instructor there that's an adult. And we're gonna limit it to one glass during this class today and.
That I don't know. No.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad idea.
That's right.
Throwing that out
This just sounds like the headlines of all the things that we have to do, and we're gonna pass a bill that is gonna be just different, but I hope we can do something. I just wish it was a little bit different than the way it's drawn up. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator. I just have a question. I don't see any other questions from the committee. I mean, are we talking like one day of coursework where they'd be doing this, or how often in a semester are we doing this on Tuesdays? It's sip and spit day with wings, or what are we?
The one day a week that they'll be looking
Great
forward to.
sip.
Oh, that's right. There are about 6 different classes that are new courses that are developed for this program. One will be in viticulture and enology. Another one will be in brewing and distilling. Another one will, those are the 2 main ones. Then there's also going to be a sensory class as well. And these are courses that have laboratories, and in the laboratories, the students will actually learn the science of fermentation. They will be given the opportunity to actually make mistakes and see what that translates to in terms of what the color would be, the turbidity would be, the aroma would be, the actual feel in the mouth would be as well. And then they'll also be given the opportunity to actually experiment to see how they can improve on those mistakes as well. So this is really going to be a semester-long effort.
So no real predictability about how often or.
You know, I haven't actually seen the syllabus for these courses yet, but I suspect that there will be some, it's not going to be every time that they actually enter the class. I mean, sometimes some of this fermentation takes days or weeks to finalize a product.
Okay, and do we have, I think that's helpful. Do we have any sense of those programs that you named, North Carolina, South Carolina? Have they been in place for some time and have done so without any incidents and things are going real smoothly on campus?
They have. Before I came to Maryland, I was at Colorado State University, where we actually established a fermentation science program there, and that's been.
Colorado's open for anything.
Well, they are, but we really didn't have any problems there as well. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I add one more thing? Another hat that I wear, I do a freelance writing for the Lancaster Farming newspaper, which I'm not sure if many in this room read, but oh, lovely. I wrote an article on the fermentation major last fall when it was coming out and everyone was very excited. So if you Google Lancaster Farming and fermentation major, the article will pop up and there's a lot of great information past this testimony there as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I don't see any additional questions from the committee, so that will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 672. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon. Colleagues, our work for the day is done. Thank you all very much for hanging in there and sticking with us. Have a good weekend. Be safe.